Well, good morning and welcome inside the Robert Allen and Friends show here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. As we get rocking and rolling on this Wednesday, Patrick Wheeler here with you, filling in for Robert. Jordan Woodruff is back at Command Central, and I'm live over here today at Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling here in Stillwater. Make sure you give them a call at 405-780-6637. Now is the time to call Advantage for hot weather service on your home's air conditioning system for the cooling and comfort you will need all summer. They have all the latest technologies like those Wi-Fi thermostats. You can control your cooling and heating settings straight from your cell phone while you're away from home. You can also set it to dehumidify to circulate clean air through your air filtration system, all from your phone. It doesn't get easier than that. You're heading home for the day and it's a brutally hot day in Oklahoma like it tends to be during the summer. Well, you can have your AC already running and ready to go by the time you step foot in the door. Big time convenience there. So make sure you give them a call, 405-780-6637, or you can go online at youneedadvantage.com. Lot to get to today on the show. We are going to have a couple of guests coming up later on too in about 15 minutes or so here. We'll talk to TJ Eckert from KTUL. He and I always like to get into quite a bit involving college sports. We'll take a look at Oklahoma State football and a lot more guaranteed in that. And then later on, Dan Buffo will join us in the 11 o'clock hour. He'll give us all the latest updates with the St. Louis Cardinals. We haven't talked to him in quite a while as we're really close to the All-Star break in Major League Baseball. And so we'll get into him with a lot there too. I want to start off today. This was a story I didn't get to yesterday, but it actually still kind of grew legs a little bit more overnight, so it worked out pretty well. But this is one of those stories that when you get involved in sports media and sports broadcasting, this is one of those stories that shows how many times being in this business can eventually rear its really, really ugly head. And this happens to be at a situation and at a place that is most well known for their sports coverage, or at least at one time that was the case, and that involves ESPN. And this story has been wild over the last few days about this internal struggle that's been involved, circulating with two different personalities, Rachel Nichols and Maria Taylor, two female personalities at ESPN, have been going back and forth. And when I was reading this story over the weekend, I was thinking, all right, this probably won't end up being such a big deal. You know, you've got a couple of, I just kind of read the headlines, you got a couple of personalities kind of squawking back and forth. Maybe it won't turn into anything huge. But this turned into quite the ordeal for ESPN. And I believe, as we watch things like this unfold over there, what once was the go-to network for sports, especially when it came to your entertainment, your sports news, and then, of course, providing you live sports, has begun to really just implode on a larger scale than it ever has. Because over the last number of years, we've seen issues with ESPN, but this is one of those situations where it kind of took it to the next level. So what happened? Well, last year, everyone remembers the NBA being in a bubble. It was the creative thing to do. Oh, man, we talked a lot about it. Would it work? Would it not work? Did it make sense? Well, they had the NBA in the bubble last year at Disney World. And while that was going on, ESPN had a number of their personalities that were also down there in that bubble. Well, Rachel Nichols, who hosts the NBA show The Jump, a lot of people you've probably seen, if you watch ESPN at all over the last number of years, you've seen her do sideline reporting, and she is a white woman. I have to mention that because race is going to be playing a huge part of this story. Now, Rachel Nichols is privately speaking with somebody in this bubble in her hotel room last year. She's talking with LeBron James' spokesperson, out of all people, which first off right there just proves how much control LeBron James personally has with ESPN and its mouthpieces. I mean, she's having this discussion with his spokesperson. She does not know that this discussion is being recorded accidentally. There's a camera in the hotel room that recorded this entire thing. She explains in her words that Maria Taylor, who is a black woman at ESPN, that her being black is a big reason why she ended up replacing Rachel Nichols on NBA Countdown. She starts talking about it in this really kind of unique way where she's explaining to this person, hey, look, I hope that she has a lot of success, but she says that ESPN has a crappy track record when it comes to diversity, and that they shouldn't be trying to use her to fix that with Maria Taylor, trying to take over Rachel Nichols' job. And I think it's pretty interesting when you look at it from this angle, because you have someone in Rachel Nichols who is always extremely outspoken when it comes to things like diversity. But when it actually came knocking on her door, all of a sudden it was something that she didn't want. To me, it seemed like a pretty nice hot scoop of hypocrisy. The more that you look at it, the more that you start to dive in and dissect exactly what is going on in this situation. And Rachel Nichols has effectively been removed from the sidelines from the NBA Finals here. That's going on right now. She's been replaced there. And this audio, you're wondering where it came from. Well, it was leaked. Like all audio usually tends to be. This was leaked to the New York Times. The New York Times got a hold of it and blasted it all over everywhere else. This was a situation where, here, I'll tell you exactly what Rachel Nichols said. In her audio, she said this quote: "I wish Maria Taylor all the success in the world. If you need to give her more things to do because you are feeling pressure about your crappy long-time record on diversity, which, by the way, I know personally from the female side of it, go for it. Just find it somewhere else. You are not going to find it from me or taking my thing away." Unquote. All right, so there you go. Exactly what I just said. And this comes at a time where Maria Taylor specifically is looking for a giant increase in pay. She is asking for $8 million a year to be a sideline reporter and to be a host on ESPN. You got that? $8 million a year, which is absolutely unheard of. The question is, when Rachel Nichols was explaining that, was she right? Was she right that ESPN solely promotes and hires and advances based on the color of people's skin tone? And I would have to say, in a way, absolutely, I think she was right. They hire and fire based off race all the time. They've made that very clear. The numbers, the data is very clear on that. And I just, again, think this is a hilarious case of hypocrisy that ends up hitting Rachel Nichols in the face. She's always enjoyed being woke, and again, claiming that ESPN needs more diversity, needs all this. But when it directly affects her, it becomes a huge problem. As far as Maria Taylor, because she's in the center of all this. You've seen a bunch of people, if you've gone on social media, have come out and defended Maria Taylor. Oh, she's in the right here. She's the victim here. Look, she is a host and the sideline reporter, and she's good at those jobs. Is she $5 million good, which is what she was getting before? No. Is she $8 million good? Hell no. She doesn't draw those viewers. And same with Rachel Nichols. But Taylor is extremely fragile and extremely weak, and she cares way too much about what people say about her. At the same time, though, I can't feel bad for someone like Rachel Nichols in this situation because, again, this whole time she's always been preaching, the woke rhetoric that happens at ESPN. Then it comes back and finally bites her, and it's not going to work. Malika Andrews last night was announced to replace Rachel Nichols on the sidelines for the NBA Finals. I think this whole thing is a huge disaster for ESPN internally, and you have to think about it this way. Interesting timing for this to be leaked out. Talking about Maria Taylor contract negotiations, she wants $8 million. Now all of a sudden she can come back and play that audio and say, hey, I was the victim here. This was racist. There was a white woman that was sitting there in that room, and she was claiming that the only reason I took her job is because I'm black. And she can say that's on full display, and this is leverage. That's the only time anybody gets an extensive contract extension or extensive money is when they have leverage. And that is the same thing for sports media, especially big-time places like ESPN where those numbers shoot up. And Rachel Nichols goes on yesterday on her show and does this really, really weak and weird and awkward apology where former NBA players that are now co-hosts, Kendrick Perkins and Richard Jefferson, did most of the talking and basically bashed her and said, hey, you were in the wrong. I'm glad you understand that, but you were in the wrong. But for me, there was nothing to apologize for if you're Rachel Nichols. She shouldn't have done that. Why, you may ask? Well, she did it anyways and still lost her job as a sideline reporter. So what was the point of that? I think this is a huge, giant woke catastrophe, if you will, inside ESPN. They only focus on race, and it's come back to actually bite them. They don't focus on talent anymore. All the reporters, all the hosts, everyone that they've had to let go of in the last few years, well, I haven't had to, but I've decided to, has proven that they've no longer started to care about talent. It's all about, what looks best. And I think their ultimate fall has been really unbelievable to watch, because you've seen so many former hosts and so many former reporters at ESPN that have come out, especially about this story, and I've just laughed at it. Said, man, this is what's been going on for a while. Some of them that are thrilled to no longer be there. And I think what once went from, again, this was your go-to when it came to sports. You'd go on television, you'd immediately flip on SportsCenter, you'd get your sports dose, and that was it. You didn't care about who was what the color of the person's skin that was telling you what it was. You didn't care about the politics that person had going on. You did not care who they voted for, anything like that. And yet here we are in 2021, and we are watching the sports giant itself really just fall over on top of itself and implode. And I think it's really extraordinary to watch. I'm not sure we'll ever see anything quite like this anymore. But bottom line, you had a leaker of this audio who found out and then leaked it on July 4th. Actually, that's the thing. They've probably been sitting on this audio for at least a year now of Rachel Nichols, and decided on July 4th, let's dump it out there. Let's make sure that this is going to happen during the NBA Finals. ESPN finds out. New York Times runs it. They freak out, and all of a sudden, there's more focus on this situation than there was on the NBA Finals, which, again, started last night. It had some entertainment value to it as well, but you wouldn't know it because the story and the focus is on Rachel Nichols. It's on Maria Taylor going back and forth, and this situation where ESPN now finds themselves in a situation that was race-baited to them. And I think it's unfortunate that it had to happen that way, but they are now getting a little bit of the taste of their own medicine here in this situation. And I just think that it's also unfortunate for Rachel Nichols. I mean, that was a private conversation that she was having. She didn't ever expect that to get out. But the fact that it did, I'm sure she has to be feeling pretty embarrassed at the same time. She needs to realize, look, there's nothing that she said that has to be apologized for, and yet she still did and lost her job. That just goes to show it makes no sense. When people come at you and tell you, hey, look, you need to say you're sorry about this, you need to come back and make a public apology on this thing, well, why? It doesn't help anything, even if you think you should. What does it do? And I think that this is a situation where it's just gone up in flames and continues to for ESPN internally. Jordan, have you paid attention? Have you read any on this story, kept up to date with it at all, and seen how it's kind of just imploded on ESPN over the last couple of days with these talents?
Yeah, I've watched and seen a little bit of it. I mean, I've mostly read things. I haven't listened to what people have had to say, just kind of reading the facts of things. And, you develop your own opinions. First off, for me, anybody in life, if I tell you you're talking to a private conversation, you probably said something you shouldn't have said in a private conversation sometime in your life. I don't think anybody would go against that. You're also in an industry that's driven very much by ego. So as soon as you get taken off a job, whether it's your talent or not, you think you're the best, right? So what are you going to do? You're immediately going to, if you're like Rachel Nichols, I would say, you're immediately going to say, why is this happening? You develop your own opinion, whether you know it's true or not. That develops to your truth. That's your reality. The unfortunate thing for me when I look at this, all right, Rachel Nichols, Maria Taylor, Malika Andrews, these girls are excellent. It's like Holly Rowe. I throw her in that category. These are excellent women broadcasters. Like, they can be opinionated. They can host. They can do interviews. Like, I think that they are very, very talented women. And does it take... Basically, you have to cut somebody else's throat to get to a position or get in a contract deal. And I could look at Maria Taylor and Rachel Nichols with this whole ordeal. Like, just to me, it's like we're talking about it as a racial issue, but I think we also, because I want to see advancement of women in sports. I mean, I really would like to see that. I tell people all the time, don't just, if you're a female broadcaster, don't just aspire to be a sideline reporter. Want to be something bigger, because we need that out there. We need those voices out there. And I just see this, and I look at it with another layer almost, where there's a lot of women in sports that's like, what are we doing here? You are all very talented. Why are we having to cut each other's throats? Why are you having to do all this just to get a little bit more? And you bring the egos in and all that. So it's just a frustrating situation. And ESPN's in a place. How do they handle things? I mean, on the surface, it seems like ESPN, you could say, is one of the more forward-thinking organizations as far as trying to bring diversity in and everything, but still they're having problems, it seems like, with the people they're bringing in, saying it's not diverse enough. So it has a lot of different things to it. I don't know if you ever know what the exact truth is in all of it, personally. I don't know if you can ever find out, but I just think it's unfortunate for all parties involved, and it sets things back a long ways, where it would be nice, as you mentioned earlier, you tune in, when you're looking at ESPN, you're looking at the highlights, you're looking at the sports, but that's not where we're at in our society. And ESPN made a decision many years ago, thought more eyeballs would tune in if they get into more situations like this, or not necessarily this in detail, but bring in the political side of things a little bit more. So I don't watch ESPN. I mean, I watch ball games and stuff, but I don't really watch a lot of ESPN and a lot of the host and everything. I hear what they have to say with some of the highlights every now and then, but I do think there are a lot of talented people at ESPN. And, of course, Maria Taylor is somebody I think is very talented, because I watch her every college game day where we're not doing pregame. So I think she is very talented, just like Sam Ponder was. And when I've seen ESPN scroll across, I've seen Rachel Nichols before at games and stuff. So these are a lot of very talented, and maybe some of the most and top talented female voices in sports, not just at ESPN. And they're at each other's throats, and ESPN's feeling bad about it. It just has so many different things that you can bring into it that just seems like very unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm with you. Again, I think that Rachel Nichols, Maria Taylor, clearly, they've got talent. They're good at what they do. But for Maria Taylor to think that she's worth $8 million is unbelievably incorrect. And she's not. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of broadcasters that don't make that much money that are much better doing what she does.
Well, and that is a good point, but it's also, what's the value right now? I mean, did Flacco deserve all the money he got in the NFL? But when he got that, remember that, and he was wasn't he the highest paid at one time?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, why would you do that? It turned out to be a bad deal in hindsight, but at the time it looked like for him it was the perfect opportunity. Maria Taylor's trying to capitalize on the opportunity. There is nothing against that. That's what we all want to do. That's a capitalistic society, quite honestly. Do I think that she's worth that? No, I wouldn't be willing to pay that necessarily if I was ESPN in a business side of things, because I'm looking at the eyeballs bringing in. I don't know if Maria Taylor actually brings in new eyeballs at that rate, like a Stephen A. Smith, for instance, does with his show, that you tune in to see what he says. But right now, with everything going on, it could work in Maria Taylor's favor, if not with ESPN, with somebody else, because she is very talented right now, and there'll be a lot of people that would love to sign her up as far as being, a person that works with them. I mean, could we see Fox? Could we see some other entity kind of whoop up Maria Taylor now? It'll be interesting to watch that and see what happens, because ESPN's in a situation now, and do you give somebody $8 million, or do you say, no, we're not going to do that, and then all of a sudden it looks even worse because she's now working for another network. People don't care. They're not reading the headlines about how much money she was going to make or not going to make. They're just seeing she's at another network. All this stuff went on. How bad does that look for ESPN? Maybe you just pay her $8 million and go on.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with her if it's a normal situation, a normal contract negotiation. She goes in and says, hey, I want $8 million. I mean, I think that would be absurd to ask, but if she does, fine, then that's you can negotiate that way. But to do it this way, where the audio leaks, just so happens to be at the time that she's negotiating her contract, all of a sudden she has leverage that she didn't have before. that seems a little suspect. And we don't know who leaked it. We can draw our assumptions and maybe have a decent idea, but it is a little strange that all this is happening around this time. So we'll see.
And don't get mad at somebody. Like, I hate this whole idea. Like, it's like, there's plenty of things to get mad about but it's like when somebody says, well, this person is asking for $8 million in their negotiation. That's what they want. Okay, I hear people blow that out of proportion all the time. If I go into somewhere and I think I'm worth something, I'm going to inflate the figure too, because I know they're going to come and meet in the middle probably somewhere, right? So anytime you hear somebody, it's like, well, this coach come in, he's asking for $10 million if he wants to be there. That's negotiation. That's what you do. The other side is probably trying to lowball a little bit and try to get you on a value. That's just part of it. Like, I don't look into those headlines. It's like, well, this person asked for this much money. I'm not going to look into that because that's what the negotiation's for. And you need to come in there with a high mark. It'd be really bad if you come in there and say, man, I'm only worth $1 million. You're paying me $4 million already. Why don't I just take a $3 million pay cut? No, I'm going to go in there and say, hey, I'm worth this. I need this. And then if I get $1 million more instead of $3 million, I'm happy about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. It was just the leverage behind it at this time is where I had the issue with it. But again, it's one of those really strange situations that is coming out right now a year later when this actually did happen, and we're all just learning about it. ESPN dealing with some big-time internal problems. It's kind of an ongoing story, so we'll keep up with it throughout the week. When we come back here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show, TJ Eckert will join us, and we'll get into college sports, take a look ahead at the upcoming Oklahoma State football season. All still to come here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Oh, screaming out at the top of my lungs, tell the world that I found the one. Whoa, my baby's hotter than the golden sun. You make my heart beat like a bass drum. Listen to me now. I've been touched by an angel.
Welcome back into the Robert Allen and Friends Show, Triple Play Sports Radio Network on this Wednesday morning. Patrick Wheeler here with you live from Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. And joining me now on the hotline, my guy TJ Eckert over there of KTUL. TJ, what is going on this morning, man? How are you?
Pat, how are we doing today?
Doing well, man. Doing well. I've dove into a lot of stuff already this morning, so it's a good day. Now tell me, you were letting me know yesterday. Were you out there on the course yesterday?
Yeah, I played in the state AM qualifier at Lincoln West yesterday. Teed off in the morning. Did not play well. My score doesn't look terrible. I shot 73, but really I was all over the place. I don't want to be that guy that says shoots a decent score but says I could have played a lot better. But I was really bad. I was all over the yard at Lincoln and found my ball and grinded and played as good as I could, but I just didn't have my best stuff. I think 1 under was in a playoff, so I missed out by about 2 or 3. So not great.
Look, man, you could be me over here and just dreaming of shooting a 73. Okay, so
well, see,
you can always be that bad.
I had to preface that because I don't want to be. There's always those guys who are like, I really played bad. I shot 68. It's like nobody likes that guy.
Yeah,
so I didn't want to come off as that guy, but I told someone yesterday, if you'd have told me where all my tee shots went yesterday, I would probably shot like 81. So I was just all over the place and I fought. I tried really hard to get as low as I could. So
it's a game of golf, man. It reminds me a lot of baseball. It puts you real high and then rips your heart out the next day. So that's a lot of what it is. Hey, I wanted to get to a lot of different things today with you. We got college sports that we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. We'll take a look at OSU football here in just a minute too. But I haven't spoken to you since NIL has officially become a part of college sports, and certainly here in Oklahoma too. Just kind of a broad question here for you, but are you in favor of the NIL rules? Do you like where this is headed for college sports?
I've never been in favor of schools literally paying guys to come in and play football or play any sport. I've never been a fan of that. That always seemed like to cross the line to me. I don't have a problem with guys being able to make money on their own, do their own thing. basically have the same opportunity that a normal student would have. If they have a good Instagram following, those students on campus can make a lot of money based on being an influencer. Well, the student athletes haven't been able to do that, so I don't have a problem with that. A couple things that I find issue with is one, there doesn't appear to be really any rules right now. It's just kind of, hey, go do what you want to do and go make money, and we'll figure it out from there. The NCAA didn't police this very well. They kind of left it to the conferences and the individual schools, and you're not really seeing a whole lot of regulations on it. And then the other problem I have is all these athletes are coming out and saying, ball is first or whatever. My sport is first. I'm going to focus on that. But these companies are going to want to have a lot of time with these guys, I would imagine. I don't think they're just going to throw a bunch of money at them just to say they did. I think they're going to want some commitment from them. So I think there's got to be an understanding from the player side and the company side that sports are first. You don't go to college to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're going there to play and make it to the next level potentially, and ultimately get a degree for those guys who don't. So there's certain things that need to be hemmed out with all of this. I don't have a problem with guys making money. I just don't want that to become the focus and we kind of lose what college sports has.
Yeah, no, I can understand that for sure. Were you surprised to see Mark Emmert eventually present those interim rules to allow all athletes to benefit from this? It kind of seemed like if he didn't, you were really going to have that easy advantage. Some schools saying, hey, we have this and you can come do it over here, and others being like, yeah, we can't get this law passed, so we're kind of SOL for you.
Yeah, I think so. I think in a way it was a proactive move when we've seen them be so reactive in the past.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of an interesting one. The one I have questions about, and when we came down to talk to Chad Weiberg after he just got introduced as the new athletic director, I asked him what OSU's doing for education. I mean, because these kids are going to be the really big name guys are going to be coming into a lot of money. And they got to file taxes. I mean, they got to pay taxes on those, and
yeah,
there's certain responsibilities that come when you make a lot of money. And so it's like, are these schools just letting the kids go out and do what they want? Are they educating them? And I'm not sure how much you guys ran from his press conference, but the question I asked him, he said that they're putting every student through the entrepreneurship program at OSU. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what they are. They're self-employed. So they're each student athlete is going to have to take an entrepreneurship class to kind of learn how to balance all that stuff. And so I thought that was an interesting point, because I think, we're all excited for these guys to make a lot of money, but we don't know what, you don't just make free money. Nothing's free.
Right. Yeah, it's whenever I heard that too, I think it made sense, because it is easy to just think, well, they go out and they make all this money and that's great, and then we don't like to read between the lines or think of everything else that's going to come with it. That's for sure. But yeah, when I saw that, I was also thinking that was a good thing. We saw over there in Miami what they're doing. They've got a company that's going to provide a contract to every scholarship player on their college football team over there. That was, I think the final number I saw, if this was all accepted and went through, would be like $400,000+ would be going to the football program from this one business. Do you think that we'll see more things like that, where you have a giant company or someone that really wants to get their name associated with football in particular come out and say, hey, we'll be willing to do this, and as well as give everybody a certain number, a certain amount of money? Your third string quarterback can earn $600 a month, as well as your first string guy. We don't care as long as everybody is on board, or we can get our brand out there. Do you think we'll see more blanket deals done like that with NIL?
You'd think so, yeah. I mean, I think that is going to open the door to a lot of different opportunities. I think, we may see that a lot more within like a baseball program or a golf program or a big donor. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, at UCO where I played, Chad Richardson is the CEO, I think, of Paycom, and I think he wrestled at UCO. And so, like that would be an example. I'm not saying that that's going to happen at UCO, but I'm saying a donor that was an alum of a sport, they say, I played on the baseball team there, now I own X. I want to be able to help these kids out and also get some promotion for my company, so let's do this. I think you'll see a lot of that. So that might help out some of the lower earning sports, I think, because, I think a company would be willing to invest money in all of the athletes on a sport that's not as big. Football, that's a pretty big commitment. That's quite a bit of money that the company's shelling out to do this. So maybe that's something we see on the lower income sports, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think it is something that you're going to see. I think companies are going to try to find their way to get their name out there, their brand out there. And I guess what better way to do it than just giving it to everybody?
Yeah. We're talking to TJ Eckert here on Triple Play Sports Radio. Yeah, that's definitely one way to get it out there. But for those teams that won't be dealing with things like that, because it's not going to be everywhere, as a coach, do you feel like the duties now as a coach happen to spread over to, hey, I need to make sure that when player A, is raking in a ton of money from NIL, and player B over here isn't getting anything. I got to make sure this doesn't cause any locker room issues. I've seen a lot of people, bring that thought up. Is that too far-fetched, do you think, where we'll end up seeing some of that, or is it going to be kind of a situation where the players understand that, hey, look, the starting quarterback for our team is going to earn a lot more than I am over here if I'm a second-string guy or what have you, even another position player. Like, I'm never going to earn as much as him, so I kind of have to accept it and then just get back in the the normal flow of things and hope the camaraderie is still there in the locker room.
Yeah, I think that kind of falls on the players in a sense. I mean, Spencer Sanders is going to be making a lot more money than an offensive lineman. Now, will Spencer Sanders bring that attitude that I'm using his name as an example. I'm not saying he would ever do this, but will he bring that arrogance with him? That I'm making this much money, I'm going to carry myself a different way because I'm more important than you guys. Is that going to happen across the country? That's going to be the question: is if these guys are going to be able to handle themselves the way they always have. Not let money get in the way of what you're saying, the camaraderie, the locker room itself. So I think there is an understanding that the star players are going to make the most money, and then there's going to be quite a few guys who don't make any money. And so if that understanding is in place and the guys who are making the money aren't flaunting it around and using it as like a power move, then yeah, I think the two things can coexist. But the problem normally happens when a guy makes a lot of money or gets a lot of attention, they let it go to their head, and that's where you could see some problems rise with some of these bigger personalities, because those are the guys that these companies want, the big personalities, the big stars. If they start letting it go to their head, then yeah, you could probably see some guys take issue to that.
Yeah, no, I would think that could also be a problem too at some time. And I think one of the other things we saw with the Supreme Court ruling, that there could be no caps on these education-related benefits. I threw this idea out yesterday to one of my guests, and I like getting the opinion here on this particularly because I think it may be something we see more of. But with no caps allowed now, do you see it maybe becoming a little bit tougher for middle-of-the-pack schools, even in Power 5 conferences, if you aren't a huge name, to land guys? And I think of last year with Oklahoma State, like Cade Cunningham. Now, obviously, his brother being here had a lot to do with him coming over, and yes, he did, respect and love Mike Boynton, that's for sure too. But do you think that it would become tougher for a school like Oklahoma State to land the next Cade Cunningham because of the money specifically in that package deal that they would really have to set aside to bring in those guys when it came to these education-related benefits? In other words, is this maybe a situation where, yeah, it looks good on paper, but maybe the rich end up getting richer here in college sports before it's all said and done?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, and it kind of goes back to, you mentioned the relationship that Coach Boynton had with Cade. I mean, that's going to become even more important, I think, because the money side of things, if that's all a school can bring to the table, that's probably going to get some kids. But I still think that the relationship building and the recruiting that Coach Boynton does, or Coach Gundy does, or any coach in particular, I think that's still going to be important. I think the money may be a deciding factor for some kids if they're, let's say Cade was really close to Mike Boynton and he was really close to Bill Self. Well, what program, as you're mentioning, could give me the most earning potential? If we're doing a pros and cons list, is Kansas going to make me more money than Oklahoma State will? If the answer is yes, then and all things are equal, then maybe that's where I go. I think that can happen. Yes, it's just hard to say because you don't know what the motivating factor is for these kids. It would appear that for most of them, they just want to make money. That's the way it seems like on social media the past few years. Is these guys are always complaining about playing for free, or these schools are making so much money off of them, they feel like they're being misused and they want to be able to make their own money. Is that going to be a deciding factor for these high school kids coming up? Because that's all they've seen from the guys that are playing ahead of them. And so if that's the case, then yeah, I think you could see. I brought up the point. I think like a school like a Rutgers or a Houston, or a school in a big market like that, a Cal up there near San Francisco, these schools that aren't dominant in their sports, are they going to have more opportunities now because they're in Houston, they're in New York, they're in LA, they're in San Francisco? Like, are those schools going to benefit from these rules? Not because of their athletic prowess, but because of their financial earning opportunities. So those are all things that I guess we'll see over the next few years if that pans out. I mean, Boston College has a really good football recruiting class right now. Is that because Boston College is a good football program? Is it because they're near Boston and they have more NIL opportunities? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it leaves a lot of openings for us in particular, media and stuff like that, to be extra skeptical, I think, from now on. That's for sure. I want to take a look at OSU football here, too, real quick while I have you on. You know, the other day we saw that the Cowboys were able to flip Talon Shetron from Oklahoma, stud wide receiver, deciding to now come over to Oklahoma State. And he was, I believe, being recruited and committed to OU back in October. So he'd been there for a little while in terms of verbally committing. But what did you think of the Cowboys managing to flip him? Obviously, they have the Tabry Shetron to come over too, and you've got the brothers once again, which seems to be a theme going on at OSU as well. But what do you think of the Cowboys being able to flip him from the Sooners?
Yeah, it's a big deal. Obviously, like you said, the brother connection there is going to help a lot. I watched Talon and Tabry both. They played in, I think, a semifinal game up here. Maybe it was quarter. I think it was semifinals up here against Union, and they're impressive. Talon's a stud, and I watched him pretty much single-handedly beat Jinx at Jinx, I think 2 years ago now. He's a stud, and so he was fun to watch. Tabry, I think he made some pretty good plays as well in that Union game, if I'm not mistaken. Both those guys are going to be really talented, and as you're saying, to be able to not only flip them from a school in general to go in and make an impression like that, but to do it from an in-state school, especially one like OU, I think it says a lot. I mean, I think it says that but the coaching staff at OSU is willing and open to taking brothers like this and making that situation work. And I think it says a lot on the kids too to believe that that coaching staff at OSU can make it work. So I thought that was a pretty big deal. They're making some good moves there at OSU. Coach Gundy's done some really good job in recruiting, and being able to win in your own state is important as well.
Yeah, it definitely is. And anytime you flip a guy from, like you said, in-state rival, that's going to be big-time news. So hopefully that does pan out for the Cowboys. The Shetron brothers now over with Oklahoma State. Let's take an upcoming look here real quick at football this year. Tylan Wallace is gone, and we know that's a big-time hole to fill. But does this team have enough wide receiver depth, do you think, to fill the hole? We know they have some different names coming in, some returners from last year that saw a little bit of time. But is there going to be enough to at least make it a little bit more comfortable for Spencer Sanders and company out there when they throw the football?
Yeah, it's always a question when you lose some guys. Obviously, you're losing Dylan Stoner as well, one of your leaders, kind of in the locker room. So that'll be a tough spot to fill as well. Obviously, I mentioned Tylan Wallace. That's when you lose a guy like that, you don't really say can you replace him, just because he's so talented, and that's so hard to calculate just how big of an impact that is that you lose him. But look, OSU's always got a guy. It just seems like they always have guys in that wide receiver room that can just fill right in and take over. And Brennan Presley's obviously a guy that has turned a lot of heads, and it would appear that he's kind of destined to be one of those next really good Oklahoma State wide receivers. I know people were impressed with Jaden Bray in the spring game. I know that obviously the brothers, neither one of them played correct in that spring game, so we didn't get to really see the twins, Blaine and Bryson. They didn't play correct.
Correct. Yeah, they were dealing with injuries and things like that. Yep. Yeah.
So then you got other guys. I mean, Braden Johnson, Tay Martin, those guys that are kind of stepping into that role as well. So there's a lot of guys that as we say this, have the potential. Potential is a scary word, because it could also mean that they don't pan out. So, but the potential is there, and I certainly think there's guys that can not fill the void, but can certainly step up and make plays and give Spencer Sanders plenty of weapons to throw to.
You mentioned Brennan Presley, and to me, he feels like he'll end up being the guy this year that they go to a lot. But do you see him as becoming a wide receiver one? Like, does he have that ability, or is he more of the guy that you like to throw out in the slot and just get the ball to him and things like that? But or does he have that ability to shoulder the weight of a guy that can actually be a true wide receiver one on this team?
I think so. You mentioned him being a slot guy. We don't want to associate, the alpha role or whatever with a big
right.
outside wide receiver. And Brennan is small and an inside receiver, so it's kind of the opposite of what you look for in an alpha. But he's absolutely a guy that can shoulder the load. He's playing from the inside, so he's not having to deal with generally a team's top corner, unless he's just that good and they want to have someone shadow him around, which may end up happening this year if Brennan continues to improve as he has. But he's not going to be facing the lockdown coverage from a top guy each and every snap. He's quick and he's elusive. He's a good route runner. He's got great hands. He's smart. So he's got all the tools and the weapons that you need to be a wide receiver one. And now the question is how will he perform in that role now that he has a guy like Tylan Wallace gone, who took a lot of attention away from Brennan. He took full advantage of that. But now some of the eyes are going to be on him in this offense, as you're mentioning. Is he going to be able to step up? And I think he can. I think he's got all the tools and attributes you need to be a stud wide receiver, especially in the Big 12. He proved that there late in the season. And so I think you'll see him make a big jump. The question will be some of the older guys that are in there, can they continue to help him progress? And if that's the case, then yeah, I think he's a guy that can step up and he can be a 1,000-yard receiver. I think he can, especially from the slot. I mean, he's so quick and elusive. I think he has that potential.
And I like getting your opinion on quarterbacks because I know you've been there, you've played the position. So what does Spencer Sanders need to do to take that leap this year to try to elevate Oklahoma State, maybe to that next spot? Because we saw last year there were flashes of success. He looked really good at times, and there were other times you questioned his decision making and things like that. We've heard that he's worked a lot on details, footwork, things like that in the offseason. But what does he need to do to kind of take that last leap to elevate Oklahoma State this year?
Sure. Well, we talked about it a lot last year when you and I would talk on here about his kind of play style, being a gunslinger, being a guy that takes chances, takes risks, and forces balls into tight windows and does all those type of things. And you kind of take the bad with the good, which hopefully the good outweighs the bad. But as he continues to get more and more starts, I think the bad needs to be obviously less and less. And I don't mind still taking chances, but they're calculated risks. You need to know when to force things, when to pull it down and run, when to throw the ball away. That's an art. That's throwing the ball out of bounds and not taking a sack and not throwing a pick. That's part of being a good quarterback. And so I think the next step you need to see is not see him become more conservative, but just be a little more conservative in his approach. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but you don't want this gunslinger mentality to turn into nobody wants to see him throw 28 touchdowns and 16 picks. I mean, we need to see a progression in that sense.
Yeah.
Let's force it, but let's be conservative when we do it. And then when we're running the ball, better ball security. He had a fumbling issue, so hopefully we're working on the ball security when we tuck it down and run.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely the main things we'll be looking out for. TJ, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it as always. And real quick, tell us where we can find. I know you've got the podcast going right now with the golf podcast, and where we can find it. What's it called? All that stuff.
You bet. Yeah, Plug By, the Plug By podcast. It's on Twitter and Instagram, Plug By Pod. About to drop an episode actually here when I get off the phone with you. We have an interview with Austin Eckert. So Oklahoma State Cowboy.
Awesome.
I think your listeners will enjoy that. So we'll drop that, and should be up here in the next 10 or 15 minutes or so. So Austin Eckert, good interview, playing well in his early professional career. Played well on the Korn Ferry Tour, made a couple cuts on the PGA Tour as well. So keep an eye out for that.
There you go, the Plugged Live podcast and former Cowboy. There you go, Austin Eckert. That'll be good stuff to take a listen there. And TJ, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it as always, and we'll definitely talk to you soon. Football's right around the corner, man. I don't know about you, but I'm hanging in there because it's coming up.
They say July is the last month without football until March, so fired up for that.
Love to hear it, man. You really do. TJ, thanks, man.
All right, thanks, Pat.
All right, that's TJ Eckert. You can follow him on Twitter at TJ Eckert KTUL. That's at TJ Eckert KTUL. And check out the Plugged Live podcast where you can hear Austin Eckert. He said that'd be up in about 15, 20 minutes. There you go. How about that? Cowboy Austin Eckert going to be on with TJ and the crew on the Plugged Lie. Good stuff there from him as always. When we come back here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show to wrap up this first hour, we talked about Oklahoma State football. They did actually get another commitment over the weekend, I believe it was. So we'll take a look at that real quick when we come back, and then hour number 2 will be right around the corner, and we'll get much more going on here live from Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Triple Play Sports Radio Network back after this.
Showed you true colors, I don't like what I see. Story keeps changing, I know what that means. Know what that means. I know
We're back into the Robert Allen and Friends Show, Triple Play Sports Radio Network on this Wednesday. Patrick Wheeler with you, Jordan Woodruff along as well. I'm live at Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 405-780-6637. Keep your HVAC systems operating safely and efficiently. With an Advantage maintenance agreement, you can keep your systems up and running and catch potential problems before it breaks. And if you've ever dealt with issues with your HVAC, you know that you definitely want that taken care of before a bigger issue comes up. So make sure you take advantage and call Advantage, or go online at youneedadvantage.com. So I mentioned before the break, Oklahoma State did get another commitment on over the weekend, in the July 4th weekend. The latest comes from Dylan McKinney, who is a Texas, or is from a cornerback in the Texas Heritage over there in Colleyville. And I think that this is a situation for Dylan McKinney where he looked at Oklahoma State and said, man, this defense is no joke. This is the best part about all these defensive players announcing that they're going to come to OSU, because they take a look at what happened, especially last year with some of these guys, and then the success that this defense had, and not just success, but also the way that they anchored this team many times. They want to be a part of that. They really get after the ball on the defensive side and make tackles, and they're consistent on that a lot of the time. It's a big draw. You get guys like Tim Duffy, who's back there coaching the cornerbacks in particular, and the success they had some last year too. Dylan McKinney, I think it was a good pick for him. Now he turned down places like Arizona. Mizzou was another team that was in the mix, another school that was in the mix there for him as well. He visited Stillwater last month and described it as a, quote, family atmosphere, which I'm also not surprised to hear that coming from him. And he's a 3-star, 6 foot, 175 pounds, the number 64 cornerback, and the number 668 overall recruit nationally for that 2022 class. Number 95 prospect in Texas, regardless of his position. Colleyville Heritage was an 8-1 final last season as a junior there in their record, and McKinney was a big part of that. He was named a first-team All-District selection, 22 total tackles, 2 picks, 6 pass breakups, and 1 fumble recovery. When he talked about Tim Duffy, he said he's a great person. I feel like most coaches that want to get you at their school and say they got a great steal from the other coaches that were recruiting me, I feel like Coach Duffy, he's like a real mentor. He's like another father figure to me. Another thing that these recruits really like to see. They're going to come out and say, hey, look, he's not just a coach. He's willing to help me out in things in the area of life too, and that's something that Oklahoma State brings to the table with their coaches. So another commitment to that 2022 class. That means you've got 13 verbal commitments to the 2022 recruiting class already. 5 of those have been, 5 of the commits have been on the defensive side of the ball already, which lets you know where Oklahoma State is headed in terms of that side. And I think a lot of different players are excited to come over and take advantage of the culture that's going on, as well as the talent level and what that defense brings to the table, even at a Big 12 school, believe it or not. So there you go. Latest commitment, Dylan McKinney to Oklahoma State, 2022 cornerback out of the state of Texas. When we come back here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show, hour number 2, we'll get into 3 big headlines of the day. Later on in the hour, Dan Buffa will hop on and join us as well, and much, much more coming up here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show. You're listening here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
And I don't know how we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. How we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow.
Welcome back into the Robert Allen and Friends Show here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. on this Wednesday. Everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday. Thanks for hanging out with us a little bit here on Triple Play Sports Radio. Live from Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling here in Stillwater. You can give them a call at 405-780-6637. Whether your issue is a faulty air conditioning system that needs service now to keep you cool this summer, or if your problem was busted pipes this past winter, a lot of people dealt with that too. Advantage always wants to get customer needs taken care of ASAP. At Advantage, you are the number one priority. 405-780-6637, or you can go online to youneedadvantage.com and make sure you get everything rocking and rolling as the summer is officially here and bringing a lot of warm weather with it. Make sure your air conditioning is up to date and ready to go with no issues. All right, so we're going to get into three big headlines today. We'll start with this first one coming from the Tulsa World just the other day. This one comes from Garen Emig at the Tulsa World. He said, we'll get this loaded up here as he's talking about Chad Weiberg. Here is, of course, they want to give me a paywall. Here we go. As college sports quake, Chad Weiberg strikes steady tone on first official day as OSU athletic director. I read through this story and I thought that the Garrett Emig did a pretty good job covering the introduction for Chad Weiberg that happened last Thursday is when that was. And we heard a lot from, for instance, whenever Tom Dorado came on the afternoon sports drive later that day and gave his thoughts on Chad Weiberg. And I think those thoughts tend to echo for the most part of everyone else that enjoys or is going to be excited about what he's going to bring to the table as the new athletic director. And you think about the time in college sports that he is inheriting here at Oklahoma State. And this, of course, would go for any athletic director, but to come in as the first time here, it has to be somewhat overwhelming. Every single day, you're being asked to do things and to help control and regulate things and make the correct move with all of this extra stuff going on in college sports that you never would have been asked to do in years before. But it seems as though Chad Weiberg is the guy that is going to be prepped for the job, ready to do it as well as anybody else. And you talked about a little bit of his deputy that was going to be involved too, now coming over for Oklahoma State, and you look at the background for him just on the financial parts of this alone. It seems like he's going to end up being a good fit too. Obviously replacing Mike Holder been there for 16 years. But I have to think, again, this is one of those situations where, and Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if there's ever been a situation for an athletic director coming in before where it's maybe going to have this many challenges to navigate. And I guess there's been plenty of challenges before for athletic directors, but with NIL, with everything about the transfer portal and all that stuff, trying to get college sports enticing here at Oklahoma State to keep them on that level. This seems like a situation for Chad Weiberg where he's had to probably adjust his sights a little bit more than you ever would have in the past because of the direction that college sports is headed and the interest level that needs to be maintained to get players to get the right games and stuff scheduled over here. It seems like Chad Weiberg, I think it's safe to say he's certainly going to have his hands full, but he does seem to be the right guy for the job based on how everybody feels about him.
Well, I think athletics has become more of a big business. I think if you go back 50 years, it was certainly had the essence of that, but at the same time, it wasn't big business. You'd see a lot of coaches, for instance, that were promoted to athletic director. You don't see nearly as much of that now because you got to have people that have worked in administrations and have the athletic management experience needed. And of course, Chad hits a lot of items with that. The deputy AD they brought in hits a lot of things with that as well. So I do. I think it's kind of a product, even without the NIL and everything going on. I think that being an athletic director now is totally different than what it was 20 years ago, 50 years ago, certainly so, and it just keeps advancing. But you throw in the NIL, you throw in the other things on top of that. I think the landscape of college sports is certainly changing. as we are acknowledging more of the business side of it. I mean, we always joked, right? They don't say business with it. You never hear that word, but that's what it is. Well, now I think you are acknowledging that it is a big business, and you're having to with all the NIL stuff. So, yeah, as far as an athletic director coming in, to me, everybody has their challenges throughout time. But if you were going to ask me, if looking on the surface, and maybe everything's just really smooth, and that'd be great for Chad if everything goes smooth.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at it just on the surface, as far as like somebody taking over, what events are going on in the world that could affect what they're taking over, more so now than ever before, Chad walking into this situation, and he wants it. I mean, he loves it. He knows what he's doing. I think he's got good plans together. But here's the one thing that I'll bring up when it comes to overall, and I think this is for a coach, this is for an administrator, this can be for anybody in life. Eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to have some kind of crisis. Like, and I'm not saying that it's something horrible, but, you know, is it a scandal with a coach? Is it a NCAA investigation? Is it... you know, we've had tragedies with crashes here at Oklahoma State, and God hopes we never have to go through anything like that again. But there's always going to be some sort of crisis that comes up, and I think a lot of what sets the tone is how you are going to handle that. I don't know if I'm ready to put the NIL stuff into the crisis category yet. But it'll be interesting. I think everybody has that challenge. There's a bunch of challenges, but there's always seems to be that one challenge that's going to get the most publicity. How are you going to handle that when that comes up? And ultimately, I think that kind of sets your tone for what's to come. And, you know, we could name 100 things it could be, but usually it's not anything you name. It's going to be something that's unexpected.
Yeah, that is typically how that happens. But Chad, obviously, in the driver's seat right now, with a lot of green grass in front of him, if you will, and we'll see how he can handle and navigate that as he'll officially take over. This second one comes from Outkick.com. Secretary of Defense reverses course, allows Navy grad to try out for Bucks. This was a story that we had brought up a few weeks ago now, back on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Myself and Zach Lancaster were talking about it, but Cameron Kinley, who was trying out with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was not going to be allowed to have an opportunity to play with them or try out for them when training camp and all that stuff down the road because of his affiliation and being in the U.S. Navy. He had a request from the U.S. Navy to delay the commission in order for him to allow himself to have a chance to make the team, but that was not granted initially. It was one of those things that was brought up where you were like, man, understand he's a part of the United States military, but this is a pretty rare thing to happen for someone who was actually going to get a chance to play at the professional level, and they told him, well, sorry, we're not going to allow it, we're not going to delay, you're just going to have to deal with it, and maybe some other day you'll get a chance. But now it has been officially granted to Kinley. Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, told him that his commission will be delayed and he'll be allowed to participate in Tampa Bay's training camp because he was offered that free agent contract by the Bucks. You had Bruce Arians that came out and said that he was really excited about what he saw with Cameron Kinley and thought he would be a good addition to the team. This is what Kinley said, quote, "I'm extremely appreciative of Secretary Austin's decision, and I am excited to represent our fine military in the National Football League. This past month has been very challenging, and I'm thankful for everyone who has supported me in any way." This is a defense that we know with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that is already pretty good. If they could add on to that in any way in the secondary with a guy potentially like Kinley, that would be huge for them too. And he said this is Bruce Arians who said, quote, "He's obviously very important to the Navy. I would love to have him. I thought he showed promise." So you have to put yourself in Kinley's shoes. If you are involved in the Navy for the United States, and the defending champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers have offered you a free agent contract, you think to yourself, man, I can't believe this is happening. Surely, I'll be able to have my commission delayed and I'll be able to take advantage of this. You ask the Navy and they say, nope, you're going to not be able to do that. You're going to be involved with us and not them. But he does get that chance. I think that's a great opportunity here for Cameron Kinley. You don't see this type of thing happen very often where you have someone involved in the military as well as the NFL anymore. That's something that doesn't happen as much, and that's great to see. I thought that was a big, uplifting story there for a guy who thought he was never going to get his real chance, even though it was offered to him. So congratulations to him. This last one comes from ESPN.com, where it says, source, veteran wide receiver Josh Gordon files for NFL reinstatement from indefinite suspension. Now, I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but I feel like I have read this headline maybe 20 or 30 times over the entire course of Josh Gordon's career. Josh Gordon files for NFL reinstatement from indefinite suspension. This was a suspension that was handed down once again for Gordon violating the policies on substance abuse and performance-enhancing substances and all that. He has had his issues. It actually became such an issue with Josh Gordon that it just became a big joke. Oh, man, he's going to be in the league again, okay, but for how long? This is like his sixth chance. He was suspended the sixth time, in fact, since the 2013 season. 6 suspensions since the 2013 season. And this is his fifth suspension for some form of substance abuse, according to the ESPN Stats and Information Research, which is just unbelievable. So once again, he's asking to come back. But at this point, it's going to be basically, okay, for how long? And will anybody actually want to be involved with what Josh Gordon has to offer anymore? Because what exactly does he have to offer? When he was in his prime, he showed a lot of ability. He showed a lot of promise. He looked like he was going to end up being one of those top receivers in the entire league, but he could not stay off the substances when it came to off-the-field stuff. He's 30 years old. He had signed that one-year deal with Seattle before last season, and you were hoping, man, if he could get in with Russell Wilson, that'd be a lot of fun to see. He'd have a lot of opportunities to show off his talent there in that offense, but it never worked out. Couldn't stay clean. The last thing he ended up doing, he was involved in that fan-run league that Johnny Manziel was a part of too. And when that happened, it was kind of like, we reported on it like, hey, that's cool. Josh Gordon, at least he's finding a way to play football. We kind of felt for him because he did have all that talent, but clearly had an issue with not staying off these substances. But at the same time, it was kind of sad because you were like, and it was the same way for Johnny Manziel. It's like, man, 2 players that showed a lot of promise, but could not keep it together with off-the-field issues, with substance abuse issues, and now they've been relegated down to a fan-controlled league that was just kind of thrown together in this kind of joke of a thing that was thrown together for pure entertainment purposes. And of course it was interesting too because Johnny Manziel was obviously a former teammate of Josh Gordon when they were at the Cleveland Browns. So we'll see if he gets reinstated again. If he does, he would immediately become a free agent. But again, the question is going to end up being how long? I mean, how long until this guy, eventually is out again because he's smoking weed, he's doing whatever with alcohol that leads to something, or it could be even worse. But I've never in my entire life seen someone get as many chances as Josh Gordon. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see if he was reinstated. But once again, it would be a situation where you're just kind of waiting. All right, that's fine. Whatever team he ends with, good luck. You might have him for a week or 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks because his track record and his history tells me he won't be around very long. Jordan, have you ever seen any player get as many chances as a guy like Josh Gordon? I mean, he's quite literally been suspended 6 times since 2013 and had a chance to come back to the league every single time.
I probably couldn't just tell you off the top of my head. I figure there's been something like that in the past that's happened where a guy's been suspended that many times and gets reinstated. But, currently, yeah, that's the one guy you think of that when it comes up. But yeah. I kind of got a feeling, he never – it's not like some things where it's just these minor things, right? It's like minor drug, a minor, DUI maybe isn't minor, stuff like that. But it just seems like it's not to the level where it's like, hey, you're banned. We're not taking you back. And he is good. And when you're in a marginal thing and you're a bad team, you're thinking, oh, I can throw the ball up. This guy can go get it maybe 2 times and we win a couple of games and get into the playoffs. I think there's still going to be a willingness for somebody to go out there and take a chance because he can be that good. Now, coming into it, he may not last very long. He may only get you 4 games, if that. But I think there is a willingness to take a chance. But, yeah, the guy has had a tremendous amount of chances. he's one of those guys you put up there with others, and I think you could probably go through a whole list of guys that had all the talent in the world but just couldn't figure out how to get things right off the field to really just get focused on their talent. And, it's kind of the vice versa with some guys, right? They maybe not have all the talent in the world, but they know how to get everything in line off the field, and then they have long careers like maybe a Tom Brady, for instance, right? You know what I mean? There's guys like that, and they just doing everything right, it seems like, off the field, and it translates to on the field. And some of these guys just cannot figure it out. And it's a shame because, man, there's a whole lot of money left on the table for those guys.
Yeah, there really is, and he is absolutely near the top of my list personally of what could have been had he stayed on the right path for Josh Gordon. Now, he like you said, a lot of it has been specifically marijuana stuff. I know if this was a situation where you found out he was just out there being a giant cokehead or something worse, and then we might not ever hear of him. But the fact that he's able to come back, apparently they had been randomly drug testing him for the past 3 months, and he's passed every single test according to that source. So that's, I guess, a positive sign. Could he keep that going throughout the entire league and throughout the entire season? And specifically, Jordan, we've seen wide receivers, like Antonio Brown, for instance, who obviously his situation was much more serious. He found a way to get it worked out to where he could come back, and heck, he won a Super Bowl. So it's not impossible, but it's just going to be a lot of willpower.
Well, and are these guys waiting when the NFL says it's okay to smoke too? Yeah. There's ways, and people I don't think understand, like they drug test. A lot of times they'll let you know that a drug test is coming. So it's like, really, it's coming. So, get the stuff to flush it out of your system, or do this or do that. But sometimes, I saw Doug Gottlieb tweet about this, and he said, I think it was with the Richardson stuff, sometimes it comes down to an IQ test. I don't necessarily think that's for everybody, but it is for some of them. And you kind of wonder that with Josh Gordon, right? That it comes down to maybe that part of it with him. But yeah, I mean, he has a problem, and it's kept him. And what you said, what could have been, it's unbelievable to think about. But who knows? 3 years from now, maybe it's a situation where he's not having to worry about the drug test and get back on the field. And he's the guy that's out front complaining, saying what could have been if the NFL would have done this when they should have done it. All right? I mean,
yeah. Well, and the NFL had passed that new agreement that was collectively bargained, where they wouldn't drug test for THC. And it was from April 20th to August 9th. So it gave you that basically that 4-month threshold where players could go ahead and just enjoy, basically. But if you were still able to get caught and test positively after that, whenever they started testing again, it was like, man, that's kind of on you at that point, because they did give you that opportunity. Which by the way, April 20th. I mean, it was kind of interesting that they were able to drop that on 420. But they were putting that out there for those players, allowing them the opportunity, and it was reducing that testing period from 4 months to those 2 weeks, and then I think what it originally was. And it's a situation where they've adapted and allowed players to do what they want to do for a certain amount of time. But if you can't manage to keep off of it, knowing you're going to get randomly drug tested after that, I'm going to lose a little sympathy for you. So hopefully a guy like Josh Gordon can get it settled down and maybe have a chance. 30 years old, will someone take a chance on him? Maybe. Just depends on how long he can keep it going.
Hey, maybe the Chiefs can get him on a bargain.
Yeah, that'd be real nice. They bring him over. Hey, come over here and take advantage. And if he were in a situation where he was playing with Patrick Mahomes and he still found a way to screw it up, we all know that he really doesn't want to be playing football anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like you root in a way. You never see, like, it's not like he has problems physically abusing people, which we've seen.
Right.
So. And I mean, I know people back where I'm from, it's the same way. I mean, you root for them because they can do better if they could just, find a way to get past that. And I you kind of find yourself rooting, even though you don't really,
sure.
I don't know Josh Gordon from Adam, but man, I want the dude to go out there and make some money. But for him to do that, he's going to have to clean himself up a little bit with the current rules that the NFL has, and he hasn't found a way to do that.
Yeah, no, I've said the same thing. I've always been a fan of his. I've loved what he's done on the field. He's really talented, and I want him to succeed. But, man, the onus has been on him for quite a while now. So we'll see if he gets that opportunity again when the season rolls around. It's up to the league now at this point. We come back here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show. Dan Buffa will join us, and we'll get his latest takes on the Cardinals and things like that going on as we are just about halfway to the All-Star break next week. Major League Baseball is halfway through their season. So we'll get his thoughts on all that, all the crazy stuff going on with Major League Baseball, sticky stuff, and much more. Coming up next here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
I'll catch you flying, go to the moon, lay on the floor of your living room, and talk about the things that make you cry.
Welcome back into the Robert Allen and Friends Show, Triple Play Sports Radio Network on this Wednesday morning. Patrick Wheeler here with you, live from Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. And joining me now on the hotline, my guy from KSDK, Dan Buffa. And Dan, it's been a while, man. How are things going over there in the Lou?
Well, it is hot, and you could say it about a little bit about the Cardinals, but mostly it's just getting really hot here in the summer. The time of the year that I don't really like because I'm the cold weather guy that likes baseball, so that's the oddity in my life.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. It would be great to see St. Louis be hot as well right now, the Cardinals I'm talking about. Now, last night, obviously a huge win. No doubt. That was one heck of an entertaining ball game in San Francisco. Those games tend to be between the Cardinals and the Giants. But Dan, I mean, what an up-and-down year for St. Louis, right? I mean, they start the season hot. Then injuries hit, especially with pitching, and they just have a miserable June. I mean, has there been a more miserable month of June for Cardinals baseball that you can remember in a long time than what we just witnessed this season?
No, I mean, we haven't seen it in a long time. It's got to be at least 10 or 15 years since they had such a terrible June, and really everything that could go wrong for a team that didn't do enough in the offseason. Yes, they got Nolan Arenado, but unless he was able to make 32 starts a season in the rotation as well, is going to be a problem because the rotation was kind of held together by duct tape. And their offense was flawed to begin with outside of those two big bats and very questionable. So you lose your closer early in the season with Jordan Hicks, and then you lose your ace of the rotation and Flaherty, and then the offense just decides to stop working completely. So seeing them really grab their first series win this week against a team with a winning record, the first time in almost 2 months, just tells you how rough things have been in Cardinal Nation.
Well, you knew they were really going to need to take advantage of the lack of success that some of these teams coming up on their schedule were having this year. That included the Tigers. They had that stretch there with Pittsburgh, with the Diamondbacks. I think the Rockies. I may be missing a team, but you had those teams right there where you thought, man, that was going to be the stretch because then you were going into the white hot Giants, and then after that, as if it weren't tough enough, you were going to face the Chicago Cubs in Chicago right before the All-Star break, which I know Chicago is obviously skidding right now really bad too, but at the same time, those games can go either way. We always know that. So you thought for sure that you would have to take advantage of that kind of weaker part in the schedule and get right back up there at the top of the division, but obviously kind of the opposite happened there.
Yeah, I mean, it's because even with the last 2 wins, the Cardinals are still 8.5 out of first. The Cubs had they were tied for first place what I thought was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now they're in 4th place. The Reds are ahead of the Cardinals, and the only thing that the Cardinals got it together and they kept going. And you may look at that stretch in the last half of June where you had a chance to run over some teams, and now you could play good baseball, but now you're going to be facing a lot better teams. So that could be one of those, not exactly a backbreaker, but something that you remember in September as a moment in time, and maybe they wasted a good 2 or 3 weeks of games.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It'd be one of those things that we look back on potentially if things don't work out. Do you expect any more moves to be made before the trade deadline for St. Louis, because we had seen a lot of talks, eventually at some point they would try to make a move and maybe get Max Scherzer. That's probably not going to happen anymore. There were a couple other players that were rumored to be coming over to St. Louis. I think Shelby Miller was maybe back in the mix as well. Do you think there's going to be any moves made before that trade deadline?
It's. I think it's kind of a 50-50 shot. I think, as Mozeliak has said in the past years when they were struggling, if the team all of a sudden comes out of the doldrums and they keep playing well in the first 2 or 3 weeks of July, you could see them kind of go, okay, now we really have to do something. But, this front office, they never tell you what they're going to do. Because even if they tell the papers, oh, yeah, we're not going to do anything, then 2 weeks later they go out and make a 6-player trade. So they really keep their cards close to the chest. I think if the Cardinals continue to have problems and just kind of win one or win two and lose three and keep that losing ways going, then you're going to see more selling than buying. But it really depends on them convincing the front office, hey, if we can get healthy, make a few moves, win a few series, the whole things can change. But they have to prove, I think, to the front office and also to the fans to really just show up and watch this team.
We're talking to Dan Buffa here on Triple Play Sports Radio. Was it fair this entire time for the entire fan base, because it did seem like the entire fan base, to be calling for Jeff Albert, the hitting coach for St. Louis, to be fired? Because, I mean, is he the one to blame with the offense? I always think it's interesting that hitting coaches do get blamed for pro hitters, because you think about that, they're mostly there probably to help with little adjustments and things like that. But I always found it pretty interesting because these are professional hitters. They know what they're doing. Of course, we have to find a scapegoat. Was it fair to say that Jeff Albert was that guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a while you have to look at the trend. The Cardinals have had a struggling offense for several seasons for the most part. I think there was one year where they hit a lot of home runs, but overall it's been kind of suspect. It's been inconsistent. And so you bring this guy over who's known around the league as an innovator, but he also has that Houston Astros past kind of tagged to him a little bit. There was a good idea to maybe move him around the organization, but he's kind of more of a teacher and bring a new voice in. So if the offensive struggles continue, I mean, yeah, his seat has to remain hot. I mean, as much as I don't put a lot of bearing on a hitting coach, I put it more on a pitching coach, just because pitchers are kind of crazy and they need that extra coach, the extra set of eyes. But the hitting coach can't be overlooked if your offense is continuously underperforming and players are coming to St. Louis and not experiencing usually what they do in their careers. They're having a little bit of a decline. So, yeah, I mean, until this offense pulls out of the garage completely, you have to keep Jeff Albert on the hot seat.
Speaking of the hot seat, I mean, how about Mike Schilt? Let's say the Cardinals don't make the playoffs this season. Is it's fair to say that after this year he would officially be on the hot seat too?
I keep telling myself that, and then I think the last full season they had, he won Manager of the Year. He got the Cardinals to the playoffs, but that just seems like so long ago, even if it was only 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago. So I would say that he's got a little bit more of a leash. I can see the team making a shake-up coaching-wise, but I don't think they're going to make that pitching or that managing change just yet. Now, if this continues perhaps into next year, especially if they make some changes, and you see Mike Schilt not be able to get a control of his club, not be able to steer this high payroll in the right direction. So I would say if they don't make the playoffs and they don't really do anything, then his seat will start to get hot after this season.
It kind of seems, especially when we're talking about the offense here, it seems like that if Arenado and Goldschmidt aren't on their game, there's really not a lot of other guys who seem like they're willing to kind of pick up that slack. I mean, am I off on that? Because I feel like we haven't found, with Arenado and Goldie happen to be slumping a little bit at the same time, which is always a disaster when you have that much power slumping at the same time. There seems like there's no one else, whether it should be Dylan Carlson or Tommy Edman or Tyler O'Neill, who's actually been a lot better this year. But it seems like there's rarely someone else that's like, you know what, I'll fill that hole since we need this offense right now.
Yeah, the offense needs a next man up mentality more than anything.
Yeah.
I think Tyler O'Neill's been great, but every time he seems to really get going, he gets hurt.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if he's like deadlifting Priuses or going to the gym 6 times a day, or if he's just because every time he seems to go on a real tear, and this is the first season we've seen him put it together for more than a month, he gets hit on the hand or he hurts something. Dylan Carlson, I think, is going to be a very good player, but I don't think he's going to throw the team on his back. You can see, like by last night, he can make a play in the field.
Sure.
He's seeming to maybe become a better leadoff guy. I still think he's a great number 2, but you need somebody just to kind of step up. Paul DeYoung, I don't know if somebody pulled the batteries out of Paul DeYoung like 2 years ago, because he used to be a guy that would strike out a ton, but he would give you close to 25 to 30 home runs, and now he is, he's just non-existent. Molina had 3 hits last night, but yeah, you have a lot of guys who are just going to continue to do what they're doing. That's going to be the big make or break, is if they go out and improve this offense. The pitching, I think, will get healthier, of course, with the coming weeks, but you need to supply this offense with something else.
No, I'm completely with you as well. It's been a struggle, no doubt. You want that next guy up. They can string it together, because you know what Arenado's going to give you. Even while he was slumping, he was still finding ways to make some noise and poke some hits and things like that, right? I mean, he's piling up the RBIs.
Last night, he hits a 2-run homer off, kicking impossible Johnny Cueto. I mean, it's just like a crowd-pleasing moment. He blasts one off, and maybe there was a part of Cueto that wanted to do a little Tom Cruise move and throw his feet up in the air. But I mean, even those little things, the way that he can set the tone, he plays the game correctly. He's not having one of those out of mind years, but I think he's proven that he can hit outside cores, and I think with a better team around him, he might hit just a little better.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up with Johnny Cueto last night. It's the first thing that comes to mind every time I see him out there. Is that ridiculous move he pulled in that brawl with the Reds? I want to say that was back in 2010, right? Is that how long that's been?
I think it had to be 09 or 10. That's when Brandon Phillips told the paper or told somebody that the Cardinals, we love to beat them. And then he comes up to the plate and gives Yachty that little tap, and Yachty's like, hey, you're not going to touch my shins like we're friends. And then both benches cleared. I thought Scott Rowland was going to fight Chris Carpenter and Russo was going to fight Dusty Baker. I thought it was going to be like a triple card. They're going to just say, let's forget the baseball game. Let's just get the boxing ring in the middle of the mound. But, yeah, that incident will never really go away. I mean, it's just he was up against the fence, but he's literally using his cleats to kick people in the face. So every time he gives up a run, especially to the Cardinals, you just got to a little fist pump.
Well, and he effectively ended Jason LaRue's career. I mean, it was.
He did, yeah. I mean, that was. You got to think. I mean, almost every kid in the world has played a little baseball and put on the cleats. Those things are, even the plastic ones, or especially the metal ones, they can do some damage, even if they just skim your face. I mean, it's just the one thing you don't want to do.
No, absolutely not. It was one of the most egregious things I think I've ever seen. But yeah, an extremely wild brawl there. That's what I thought of too when I saw Johnny Cueto. Speaking of pitching. It's obviously been devastating to see Jack Flaherty out. And I'm not sure about you, but I'm just sick of seeing these guys, pitchers swinging the bat and then getting hurt doing it. It makes no sense. What? You're going to go up there and occasionally maybe get into a ball like Kwon Hyun Kim did the other day with a double, occasionally on a very rare situation. But it wasn't just Flaherty, right? We've seen multiple guys pitching this year for the Cardinals that have gotten hurt swinging the bat. And I don't know about you, but I'm just tired of it, man. The designated hitter cannot get here fast enough.
It can't. I mean, if they happen to be able, if the two sides can work out, the other parts of the CBA next year, I really think the universal DH is going to happen. And you get these places where the pitchers, and we all know with Adam Wainwright and his Achilles tendon. Now you have Jack Flaherty, who felt it before he hit, but if there's no need for a pitcher to take a big heavy swing and increase the severity of the strain. And you have 8 guys in the lineup who can hit, and then you have, here comes the 106 hitting pitcher who, maybe 1 out of 10 times might get a hit. I mean, how does that help a team? And it doesn't help him when he gets injured. I mean, I don't like seeing these guys run the bases. I think managers, they bring them out for pinch runners. I'm like, what are you doing? You wrap them around in aluminum foil or something. You're going to put them on the bases.
Yeah, I know it's so frustrating to see, and across the league we've seen that happen a lot in the National League as well. When they got these pitchers hitting, it just does not work out. So sticking with pitching, Carlos Martinez, is he ever going to get over this? Either he has amazing stuff to where he looks like he can no-hit you, and he's locked in from the get-go, or it's the complete opposite, and from the first pitch you can tell he doesn't have it, and it's terrible stuff. I mean, he's been in the league forever. Are we going to ever see that change, or is this just what we have to accept with Carlos Martinez? Because it seemed like a few starts ago you had plenty of Cardinals Nation that was like, man, he's got to go. He's not doing enough to bring positive outcomes to this team and giving them enough out there on the mound. He's giving up runs and walks and hitting guys. I mean, will we ever see that change?
You keep thinking, especially with Yadier Molina back there, Molina being his guy, but even when he's behind the plate, it can't make much of a difference. You have a guy who's getting ready to turn 30 years old. He's getting ready to get a pay increase. There's 2 options on his contract. And, I've been an advocate for the guy. I know that he can be in the bullpen. I know he can be an effective setup guy and closer, but we've seen him for 3 seasons be a solid starter, but that guy is just gone. You're not sure if he's going to give you 3 innings or if he's going to give you 6 to 7. He's just a wild card. And when you have a pitcher, who's got some mileage on his arm and has been given a lot of chances, getting ready to make more money in a year where there's a new CBA and your team's going to need some changes, a lot of payroll falling off, I think we're looking at the last year. I think if the team does heat up, he could be a trade piece, but I don't see this guy having another spring training. Okay, we're going to give him a rotation spot. The only thing the Cardinals could do, even though it would be an expensive option, is to put him in the bullpen, because that's where he's been better over the past few seasons. But I think it's almost time where they're about ready to cut the cord.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you on that too. We're talking to Dan Buffa here on Triple Play Sports Radio. All right, so maybe the All-Star break comes at the right time. We've seen that happen where teams kind of find their stride in that second half of the season. But do you expect the Cardinals to turn it around after this All-Star break, or are we going to end up seeing more of the same here until we get some of these guys healthy?
It's just they have to get healthy. What you're seeing against the Giants is great. And they're able to put some wins together. But how are they just going to lose that style of play that's just doing them? You have a lot of people in the lineup that they're hit and miss, and injury wise they just can't stay away from the injury bug. So I think I don't see them tumbling down like the Cubs, but I see them kind of middling a little bit, maybe going on a streak until they get more changes in that roster, until they get perhaps a couple moves, even a couple mid-tier offensive replacements. But other than that, I think they're just going to be bouncing around in second or third place for a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's kind of where it seems like they plateaued a little bit there, And I think I was like you during this this earlier this year when Albert Pujols was no longer with the Angels. I was holding out very faint hope that St. Louis would find a way to get him. Now, it was very faint. Deep down, I knew it probably wasn't going to happen. But he continues to show that he can contribute with L.A. And when I said when he went to the Dodgers, I was thinking to myself, man, out of all teams, okay, I think the Cubs probably would have been worse, but to go to L.A., it didn't feel right. It doesn't look right. Will he be, because I'm with you, I think the designated hitter is going to be universal next year. I believe that's almost inevitable at this point. Will he find a way, and St. Louis find a way to bring him back next year if the designated hitter is in play?
You almost think they have to consider it. First they're going to have to think, okay, we're going to play next year, and then we were going to have a DH. And what's the rest of our lineup going to look like? Because that's going to really determine the homecoming. As if the Dodgers, are they going to let him go? If they go deep into the playoffs, you have a guy right there who looks at himself in L.A. with the Dodgers, and then in St. Louis. I think he wants to come back, but it comes down to role. It comes down to, is he going to be the everyday DH? I don't think they want to bring him back. And really deep down, I don't think he wants to come back and be kind of like a glorified carnival piece. But it just depends on what this team is doing. Are they going to really gear up and drop all that payroll? Or, is Molina back next year? Is Waino back? Those are all still questions. So a lot of variables in there, but I think they have to at least look at it. Because if the guy can still hit, and he can still bring some excitement. If it follows a season where you didn't do much, you might need to kind of generate some ticket sales and bring the old guy back, unless they have a bigger plan, which could include a different much younger offensive piece. So I think it just depends on their plans. I mean, what are they doing? How are they making their lineup?
Yeah, and it seems like, obviously, we heard what Adam Wainwright said in terms of his retirement coming up, and after this year, the next year, will Yachty be back? It almost seems like it'd be one of those situations with Yachty, Wainwright, and Pujols. If they all got to play together one last time, it almost seems like a too good to be true type thing. Like, would that actually ever happen? Because, like you said, the ticket sales would be through the roof. You might sell out every single game just to see that. I mean, is that too far-fetched of something that could happen? Because, again, it also seems like this year, especially for Wainwright, he's not slowing down yet. Yachty, as you talked about last night, yes, he'll go cold at times, but he can still be good for a few hits in a game every now and again and bring you offense. His defense is still there. Is it too good to be true to ever see that happen?
No. I mean, it's not too good to be true, and I think there was a part. There had to be a time this year where I think the front office thought about it, and we have these. I mean, you can almost market. I can see marketing is just like those three old guys, one last time. But then you have to think about it. You acquired Goldschmidt, you acquired Arenado and Flaherty, and there's that whole little creeping storyline that maybe when is it going to become their team? And you have Arenado's opt out. So it's kind of a crazy situation. But heck no, I mean it's not a pipe dream. I mean, if you bring him back and if he can still hit, if he shows even in September and in the playoffs that he can still hit, because there's few human beings that play this game that are made like Albert Pujols, and that's a guy that just decides when he's done and when he's not done. But I think if he shows that he can still do it, he's going to want to play next year. It just comes down to if the Cardinals are going to give him that playing time much more than just try to sell tickets, maybe see home run number 700. So the Cardinals are the ones that have to entertain it more than Pujols. I think Pujols wanted it this year. I just think they're with a guy with Goldschmidt over there and maybe with the fit not being there, they kind of chose to turn the other way.
Let me ask you real quick about the situation with the broadcasting team, because I think anybody that watches the Cardinals on television regularly knows still that you've got play-by-play guy Dan McLaughlin and you've got the mix of former players that are their color guys like Brad Thompson, Jim Edmonds, Rick Ankiel, guys like that. They're still not able to actually be at the field whenever they're on road trips. Like, for instance, they're doing the games from the studios in St. Louis, covering the Giants, like tonight. And you can tell that they're clearly, especially Dan, I mean, he's clearly frustrated by not being there. He's gone on Twitter over the July 4th weekend and kind of went on a tirade there. I mean, what's going on with the broadcasting situation, and why are they not back there yet? I mean, personally for me, I feel like it's way past time. But what's the deal with all of that going on?
Bally Sports, man, it's easy to dunk on them these days. They're the ones that are getting ready to charge Cardinal fans, $20 to $30 just to watch the games next year. That's the whole app that's coming together, and I think it's ridiculous. I mean, you have the post game where they go to Rick Ankiel, who is in Florida in his living room, and he's describing a game that he just watched, like all of us. Because I think that a broadcaster, a play-by-play color analyst, they pick stuff up, and McLaughlin said it so many times. I mean, they pick stuff up just by being there, just by seeing the field, seeing the dugouts, and the fact they're not there in the middle of the season. I mean, they're getting ready to cross the midway point of the season. It's ridiculous, and I almost want to know. I mean, how many other? I mean, are the other teams? Do they have their guys in the stadium? And why is this isolated? If it's isolated to St. Louis, and how come it isn't fixed by now? Because if the ballparks are filled up, I think the broadcasters can get back in there and get a feel for their job again. I think they would love it.
Man, you really would think so. It's tough to watch sometimes. Okay, real quick, last thing here before I let you go. As far as, because the sticky stuff has been the big news in Major League Baseball all the way around. People, pitchers using it, all this stuff. What have you thought personally about the checks that they've been doing, where these pitchers come in, as soon as they throw an inning, we got to check and make sure there's no foreign substances?
I mean, it almost gives the younger fan the idea that the umpire is asking the player for his autograph before he even throws a pitch, right? Let me see your hat. But this all started with Giovanni Gallegos just being interrupted after throwing a very good. I feel like when a pitcher throws a very good pitch or gets an out, and go, okay, that looked a little bit too easy. Let me see your hat. So it's going to be a little bit crazy. It's going to be sudden. I mean, they're going to come into the game. They're going to check their hats and make sure they're not doing it, because this is something that Mike Schultz said over a month ago. This is running rampant in the game. So the early stages of trying to enforce a rule, it's always messy. It's always going to seem out of place. But hopefully this does kind of clean up the game, because those kind of advantages, you know, you're dealing with pitchers putting stuff on a baseball to get more of an advantage than what they're already, you know, using their given body to do. So I want to say it's for a good thing, but it's going to look a little awkward. It's going to look a little kind of funny at times in the early going.
Yeah, that is absolutely been the case. That's Dan Buffa. Dan, thanks so much again for joining us. As always, I appreciate your time, and hopefully the Cardinals can get something going here and turn it around in the second half.
Yeah, man. Hey, as baseball will tell you, there's interesting days ahead no matter what happens.
Yes, you are correct on that for sure, and we'll be hoping for that too. Dan, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Patrick. Take care.
All right, that's Dan Buffa. You can follow him on Twitter at Buffa82. That's at Buffa82. Does great work over there with KSDK in St. Louis and all the other. He writes for different publications, things like that. Knows his Cardinal stuff, that's for sure. When we come back here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show, we'll give an update on some a little bit of breaking news about the Olympics coming up. And then hour number 3 will be right ahead after that. Coming up here on Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler with you here on this Wednesday, live from Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Call them at 405-780-6637 or online at youneedadvantage.com. You can check out everything that you need to get fixed for your air conditioning, HVAC, all that stuff coming up here during this summer. So an update real quick before we hit this break for the 12 o'clock hour on the Olympics, believe it or not. This comes from ESPN. Surge in Tokyo's COVID-19 cases likely means new state of emergency through the Olympics. Really the last thing you wanted to hear at this point with what's going to happen with the Olympics starting on July 23rd. There is talk that potentially you could be without fans at these venues and things like that. Just when you think things are starting to go well, it looks like there may be a situation where you could have limited access to the Olympics. And obviously when you look at the numbers that are brought in strictly money-wise from broadcasting and things like that, there is no room to push these things back or to cancel or anything like that once again like it already was. But clearly this is an unfortunate situation developing in Japan right now and in Tokyo. The COVID-19 cases apparently continuing to surge around there. And Jordan, I don't know about you, but when I watch the Olympics, man, a lot of it, and just like any other sport, you love that the fan interaction, the big time crowds that make it so such a big ordeal with some sports that maybe you wouldn't watch any other time. So I would have to think just for that alone. I mean, how unfortunate would that be with everything going on right now?
Yeah, I think a big sense of the Olympics is your country's pride, and we think about that in the terms of America, but we should think about that in terms of the world. And to not be able to have fans on hand, that wouldn't just be America. I mean, you look at every country that could have a good contingent of fans, and also for the country of Japan, how many people are going to be visiting the country, and for the economy and such as well. Without having fans there, it's going to be a really, really tough thing. And it looks like that's what they're going to – I mean, I don't know for sure what's officially been said, but I would imagine with a state of emergency, that's what they're officially going to have to do. And it may be quite the task just to get the athletes there the way it's sounding right now.
Yeah, it really could. So we'll keep up with this developing story. Obviously, issues in Tokyo right now with the Olympics. When we come back here in hour number 3, we'll dive into a lot of other different stories I've got planned. My guy Levi Peckinpah is going to hop on and join me too. We'll see what he has to say about a few things involving college sports, Oklahoma State, and much, much more. So stay tuned to the Robert Allen and Friends Show here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Whoa. Staring at as I go. I gave until my soul hurt, never told them so. They're watching as I fall, somewhere down below. Maybe I'll just
Welcome back into the Robert Allen and Friends show here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler here with you on this Wednesday, live from Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling in Stillwater. You can call them at 405-780-6637. And whether your issue is maybe a faulty air conditioning system that needs service now to keep you cool this summer, or if your problem was busted pipes, don't forget you can make sure and call them because they'll take advantage of both things, or help you out. And you can take advantage of both things here. Courteous, dependable, well-trained air conditioning technicians, friendly professional service, highly trained plumbers as well. No matter what you need, Advantage has trained technicians to serve your equipment right the first time and save you money in the long run. Go online to youneedadvantage.com. Patrick Wheeler here with you on this Wednesday, and now stopping by and joining me is my guy Levi Peckinpah. What's up, man?
Man, Patrick, not much. It's another day in paradise, a hot day in paradise today. But hey, thank goodness we're in here at Advantage, so it makes everything a whole lot better. But happy to be here with you. Happy to talk a little bit of sports for the back half of the show.
Yeah, man. It's we kind of ended the week last time on the afternoon sports drive and dove into a bunch of stuff, the 4th of July weekend. And with that number of days, away from the sports scene, so much pops up, even in July. So we have a bunch to dive into. Now, clearly, we talked a lot about, because NIL was just like right there. Like it just came onto the scene when we were doing the show, and we dove into a lot of different things with that. So far, we've seen so many different angles taken with student athletes, whether it be social media. Actually, come to think about it, most of it has been promoted on social media right now, which isn't a huge surprise. I mean, we kind of said that's how it was going to go. If you had student athletes with big time followings on social media, whether that was Twitter, Instagram, TikTok now is also a big part of it.
Yeah.
We talked about the Texas quarterback that got on Cameo to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
That has been the main outlet so far.
Oh, yeah, Cameo has been a big one now. Not only the Texas QB, but the Texas running back has also been a big contributor to Cameo. Spencer Rattler's also in Cameo, and also got the big sponsorship by Raising Cane's.
Raising Cane's.
I mean, hey, there you go. You got to get that Cane's money, I guess. Now I'm just wondering if on Big 12 Media Days you're going to see him with a Raising Cane's hat and a bucket of cane sauce. But, I mean, at this point with how these things are going, good for all these guys for getting that money. Because, I mean, some of these guys, when they get out of college, they may not see that type of money ever again. So since we're now going full force into this, allow them in almost every avenue to get that money.
Yeah, and I thought it made sense because and we've said this before, you've looked at the total number of student athletes that will actually make it to the next level. It's like 2%, right? It's extremely low. It's not going to happen that often. And so you think to yourself now, okay, if we can get a player to come in for 4 years, and let's say they're decent at what they do. They're a decent football, basketball, insert sport here player. They're able to make a nice amount of money, and then they end up moving on with their life. It's something that can benefit most of these players into the future because most of them won't have a chance to actually make big time money at the next level, at the professional level. So with that in play, it makes sense as well. A unique situation that we've seen, and then this was brought up just a little bit yesterday at the end of the show, but looking more into it today, D'Eriq King, who is a familiar name to Oklahoma State fans as of last year in that bowl game with Oklahoma State and Miami. Unfortunately, he got injured. But D'Eriq King and Mackenzie Milton, who ended up creating their own company there, believe it or not, with the Miami football team, which was one unique part of all this NIL. But the Miami football team ended up taking it a step further. This comes from canesport.com, where this is what they say. Through a gym, I should say, 44 different licensed gyms that are coming out of canesport.com and things like that they've been talking about with these different affiliations. Quote, each of the 90 existing Miami scholarship players will be offered a $500 a month contract. That's up to $6,000 for the entire year to endorse American Top Team through their social media accounts, personal appearances, and other marketing vehicles. If all 90 players opt to accept a deal, the total American Top Team investment in year one could reach $540,000. That's from American Top Team alone. But what they've done here is they've been able to put a blanket over the entire football team. It just so happens that that's going to be 90 players that you're going to end up paying. But also what it does is you're able to, and I mentioned this one of my guests earlier, you're able to kind of put it over to the side where you've got this player that a lot of people haven't heard of, but he's still making $500 a month,
right,
as is D'Eriq King, who everybody's heard of.
Oh, yeah.
And in a way, they're having such a benefit being put in play here for the football team and the coaching staff, realizing, look, we don't have to deal with this whole, the jealousy aspect of it. This guy upset that this guy over here is getting paid more, that he's earning more money. Instead, we just have a blanket over the entire team. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get the same as this guy, and it's basically going to be the same amount of effort too. I think that helps immensely when it comes to just the camaraderie of the team and keeping everybody on the same page, especially in football with NIL.
Oh, definitely. It helps out everybody which way possible, because there's definitely, whenever it comes to the NIL on almost every single team, there's going to be a guy that's not going to make a lot of money and barely make any money, if maybe not at all, based on how things will work with the NIL and how big their crowd that they attract is. If it's not that big, they won't see that much. This completely puts everything for a team on an even playing field, because everybody's going to be getting the same amount of money. You don't have to worry about any type of, if there's jealousy over money or anything like that. Everybody's going to be able to make the same thing. And so for a lot of these guys who will not make a lot on the NIL, it helps out tremendously. And I think that this is something that hopefully as things go along, maybe we'll see it as the weeks go along. Maybe you see more of these squads getting whole team sponsorships, because I think that'd be pretty cool. I think that's really neat to get a lot of these guys that down the line just don't get as much from the NIL. They are able to still, at least at this moment, be able to make a good chunk of cash.
American Top Team is described as one of the nation's top training academies for MMA fighters, which has 44 licensed gyms throughout South Florida and the entire world. So basically, if you are an American Top Team gym, you can say, hey, official gym partner of the Miami football team, and you've got D'Eriq King sitting there on the front of your advertisement. He's looking swole with the footballs and lifting the weights or whatever. He posts the video. The offensive lineman's over there in the gym with the licensed equipment, benching, you name it. This can be endless. So for their brand, it makes a lot of sense too. It's kind of a win-win, but you also have to think about the money that they're going to end up shelling out. Will there be a return on some investment like that? I mean, they said that number, $540,000 in year one. That's over $500,000 that you're spending alone just on this football team. So I would have to think that maybe you would see more things like this, but I'm not sure that the number would end up being as high unless they're just big-time companies that are offering this. That's 90 players, $500 a month, which is good, man.
Oh, yeah,
if you're gonna, a lot of those guys you talk about, majority of them won't even see the field at times unless it's a blowout, and they're going to sit there and earn $500 a month.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be basically making my paycheck. I'm sitting there like, whoa, hey, you're getting that? I mean, yeah, that's a big congratulations. But, I mean, because you're going to get the advertisement out the wazoo for American Top Team, and it makes a lot of sense because the main crowd that's going to be going for that for the U, it's you're trying to attract all those young college kids to American Top Team, and it's going to be that easy link right there, and you'll, of course, get your alumni from it. And because the U is such a big national brand, I mean, they're going to get so many eyes on American Top Team. So it's the smart thing for American Top Team to do this because the brand of the U already has that top draw. So if you add American Top Team to it, and you are investing over probably $500,000, you're most likely, since you're American Top Team and you're doing it for the U, you're probably going to see that investment back.
Well, and think about it from a recruiting standpoint as well, because we always like to talk about that too. Okay, we've mentioned a bunch of times, look, this is still going to be a huge part of the pitch to recruit athletes. We know that. It's so much, in fact, that if you're a coach that's out there on the recruiting trail, a big part of your focus with recruiting has to be what you can offer NIL wise. Whether it's illegal or not, you're going to still do it. This makes it so much easier. Hey, man, we like what you're a 3-star prospect, okay? We like what you've done here. You have a lot of other offers from these schools. Is there any other school, though, that's going to offer you $500 a month to come and just be a part of our football team? You don't even technically have to do anything. You can just be on our football team, and we will be ready to give you $500 a month coming from American Top Team. You talk about making it easier to recruit guys as if, look, that you didn't have a huge problem recruiting guys, like you said in the first place, with how well known they are with their football program. Derek Keene brings in a lot of excitement for this upcoming season. We know he's electric as a QB, but I think that as far as recruiting, that just makes it so much easier.
Oh, yeah. Whenever you can have that guaranteed rate of, hey, we have guaranteed money for you whenever you come here because of our sponsorship with American Top Team, then that automatically can sell a kid easily. Because some of these other kids, whenever they go to school, they won't have that guaranteed money. They'll be having to search high and low to try to see if they can find a sponsorship. But if you have that guaranteed money front on the table that they're going to be able to earn this on for a monthly wage, I mean, that'll work wonders to try to recruit a kid.
As far as what people, they heard us when we started, talked about Derek Keene and Mackenzie Milton launching that company, which they literally did at midnight when it struck there on July 1st, called Dreamfield. And what that does is it shares those going rates for the student athletes in terms of appearing, public appearances, things like that, which also is pretty important. You got to give credit to a couple of players for being the ones to kind of come up with that. The opportunities are clearly endless, but that's another part of it too. If you say, hey, look, we've got a bunch of guys here that want to earn money, but let's start discussing numbers. Let's give you our fees. For example, Mackenzie Milton and Derek Keene that founded the company are asking, get this, $2,000 for an appearance. $2,000, which I think that number probably shouldn't surprise too many people. In fact, it could end up really going up from that before it's all said and done. I would have to think that specifically here at Oklahoma State, there's also an idea of if you want to get Spencer Sanders involved in whatever you're doing, great. Here's his appearance fee. Can you afford that? He's going to make his cash at the same time, even if he's going to post something on social media, which he'll also be a big part of what everything is going on in Oklahoma State in terms of guys sharing their NIL. He's going to be a big part of that. So I think that the quarterbacks will benefit big time, but it seemed like Miami was the kind of the launching pad for setting things in place here, especially when it came to making sure our guys are taken care of, the entire team is taken care of. And it also goes back to what we mentioned. Football is still going to be the biggest beneficiary. We knew that. Yeah. All players that have that name on the back of their jerseys associated with the program are going to be the ones involved that are going to end up making the most money. And when you get a guy like Derek Keene, for example, who's even known quite a bit nationally, as we know, he's going to have a chance to make it even more, and that's why you're going to end up seeing, I'm hopeful at least, like we saw with the Texas quarterback situation, more guys that use some of that money for good, like they flip it for charity organizations. There are really, really good things that can come out of this. I know there's a lot of people that are against the NIL, and they don't like seeing that happen. But when you do end up seeing stories like the Texas situation, and we'll see more of that, maybe you start to feel a little bit better about where this is headed.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I'm just happy that at least for this Miami team, they've got the right leader right here in Derek King, because he's that guy who's been heading up everything that's been going on at the U. And hopefully, like I said, we see more of this around the country where a lot more teams are going to be able to benefit. You get more of these group deals, because I think that's going to, if someone's wanting to try to maybe even out the landscape a little bit, you have more of these schools dedicate big team deals to where they dedicate to 300, 400,000 to a team so you can get guaranteed rates. Because that, if people are complaining about how across the NCAA things are evening out, that's how you even it out, is you get these other big brands to sponsor your team, and then you make it a little bit more of an even playing field by having that guaranteed rate that brings in kids.
And, we talked about rates or what's it going to cost. Well, Matt Corral, we talked about at Ole Miss, $10,000 appearance for him. I kid you not. $10,000. I don't really. I saw someone that made the joke. Okay, maybe that means he's asking $1,000 for all the interceptions he threw last season against Arkansas and LSU alone.
Is he bringing Robert Incondici back from the NFL with him?
This is unbelievable. And you know what? There will be companies that pay that. If you're SEC QB and you were well known, I mean, think about it. If Joe Burrow were still here, you think the people wouldn't have paid $10,000 for him to appear? Absolutely, they would have. Other guys in the past, for sure. Johnny Manziel, he would have been a $10,000 guy.
He would have been. Johnny Manziel probably been like a $25,000 to $30,000 guy if he knew properly who to get in contact with. Because I remember it was like a conversation that he had on Barstool where like he originally signed autographs for like $3,000, then went to another guy for like $30,000. Guy needed to learn how to talk to the right people.
Man, can you imagine? I mean, it's unbelievable. But some of these rates, yeah, I mean, make that money, man. Make that money. I mean, there will be people that will pay that, especially if you're in the right area, for sure. We had when I was talking to TJ Eckert earlier, he mentioned think about some of these schools that are in these states with a lot of bigger, more opportunities in terms of location. California is a good example. Yeah. Some of those smaller schools that say, we may not necessarily be on the path to win a national championship or make the college football playoff, but look at our location. We have a lot of businesses that are really excited about you over here. You're a top, you're a 4-star QB. Come over here, and you saw Matt Corral. He was able to ask for $10,000. Oh, yeah. You're in California, buddy. You're on the outskirts of LA. What do you think you can ask for?
Oh yeah. There's going to be so many spots like the California scene should be bumping with so much money, especially like for USC, UCLA. That should be popping off like gangbusters. Slovis, he's going to be going to the NFL and be getting money, but before that, he should be making a lot of college money this year. And if he doesn't, it's going to be insane if he doesn't. But I think that he's going to be one of those guys where the fee is going to be up there like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and it should be because he's most likely going to be in the running for the Heisman. You should see a lot of big rates for a lot of these bigger QBs, for Slovis, for Howell, and if it doesn't, then something is really wrong with the system that we got right now.
Absolutely, man. NIL continues to pop off, and that's the newest thing is the blanket statement there for the blanket coverage, just to say for the Miami football team, all having a chance to make $500 a month simply by being on the Miami football team. When we come back here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show, we'll get into one of our other favorite segments we like to do called Buy or Sell. That's coming up next year on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Levitating off the blacktop. Used to struggle getting started, now I can't stop. Used to be the quiet kid in the sandbox.
Welcome back into the Robert Allen and Friends Show, Triple Play Sports Radio Network on this Wednesday. Patrick Wheeler here with you. Levi Peckinpah's with me for this noon hour. Live from Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. 405-780 6637 is the number. There are dust and allergens in your home every day that can cause a lot of issues for anyone with asthma or allergies. Advantage has products that can take care of that. Their Air Advice Monitor can show you what's in your house and the best solution to clean it up as well. It's very important that you make sure that is taken care of for the people in your house, the kids in your house, the pets in your house, everything else. So make sure you call Advantage 405-780-6637 or go online to youneedadvantage.com. I say it every time I'm here too, Levi. I mean, I've dealt with the whole AC out in the middle of the summer thing. It's not pleasant, man. It is, especially in Oklahoma. The summers are no joke. You got to take advantage and come to advantage of that. It's a mess every single time I think back on it. So make sure that doesn't happen to you. You know, should have called Advantage before that.
Yeah, because didn't that happen to you last?
It did
summer?
Last summer. It was awful, man.
That.
It was like a 10-day stretch there in the middle of June. It was unbelievably bad.
Yeah, it was because I remember you would come into the studio and you would be huffing and puffing and sweat, and we'd just be like, "What's wrong?" It's like, "Oh, my AC unit's out," and we'd be like, "All right, we'll drag the fan into the studio and make sure we can cool you off."
Yeah, it was brutal, man. So I never want to go through that again, and trust me, you don't either. So make sure you call up Advantage and go online. YouNeedAdvantage.com. All right, so we like to do buy or sell on the in the afternoon sports show. I will bring it over to the Robert Allen and Friends Show too, one of our favorite segments. You know, I was looking yesterday. We talked about Oklahoma State basketball, which I'm sure you saw and talked about. By the way, you know they're playing North Carolina State this season, which is cool. It was something that Tom Dorado was on with me last week or the week before that, and we had talked about, hey, will OSU basketball schedule another non-conference opponent, and will it be from a big-time Power 5 opponent, something like that? So then why not do an ACC team? That always looks good, and it doesn't have to be Duke or North Carolina, but in North Carolina State, yeah, that's right in line with that. And then they're going to be in that inaugural tournament there, the Mohegan Sun, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. Should be a good game. North Carolina State typically provides you with some serious competition, and we're going to learn a lot about that Oklahoma State team when they take the Wolfpack on. So that got me thinking about, all right, we're going to spread the wealth around this year with these guards. Who's going to have the chance to be the guy to fill in where Cade Cunningham left off. Clearly, you have a plethora of guards that continue to grow this offseason with the addition of Bryce Thompson. But another guy that I think it's easy to put him on the back burner at this moment because of Avery Anderson going to be your guy after what he showed last year because of Bryce Thompson. But what Isaac Likely will bring to the table this upcoming season, I think, is going to be a huge question mark. Last year clearly didn't go the way he wanted, right? There were a lot of us that wondered what would happen with him and Cade Cunningham. Would they gel? Would it be something that would involve growing pains? But we saw that at the beginning of the season, really most of the way through until that late second half, they seemed to be on with each other and had this really good back and forth, and they played well together. Then when I started to deal with the injuries, he clearly wasn't all there in terms of it seemed like in intensity at times and focus, and I think some of that had to do with Cade Cunningham demanding as many touches as he did, demanding the basketball as much as he did. So buy or sell, because Isaac Likely, last season, he finished with 9.1 points per game. 9.1 points per game, which is still, you'll take that. We know he's a guy that can elevate that number.
Right.
Buy or sell this upcoming season, with no Cade Cunningham around, Isaac Likely finishes with 10-plus points average per game this upcoming year. He finds himself back in double figures.
10-plus I can buy. I think I can buy 10-plus. The main thing that is going to be Isaac's problem is, yes, we've seen injuries a lot, but it's the mental connection. And we saw that several times throughout the year. And if he can get that fixed, then I think you're going to see a better Ice. But it's to the degree of how much better are we talking about? Are we talking about, because we've said it so many times, I know Zach is the guy of like pre-mono Ice is the guy we're wanting. That's a guy that's a year and a half removed, going to be 2 years removed. That's a guy that we haven't seen in a while. But if we can get a quality guy that can go out there and still facilitate the ball, get some great passing, still, I mean, the main thing is his bread and butter half the time is just getting to the rim and still getting those looks at the rim. If he can do that and still have his all right mid-range and his like every once in a blue moon type of three-pointer that we saw a little bit last year, if he can get a little bit more of that in the game, I think that he will be able to. I think 10-plus, I think, should be an easy buy. I'd say between 10 and 11, about 5 or 6 assists. Sounds about right for Isaac Likely, but it all has to be a connection up top. If he's up top and good to go and just seems like he's mentally checked into the game, I think that's where you see it. But if he's looking a lot like last season, then honestly, who knows what you're going to get out of Isaac Likely.
Yeah, I think 10 is certainly manageable. It should be. If he's not with 10-plus points a game, averaging at the end of the year, then something, again, probably has gone wrong. Hopefully it's not injuries. And it just so happened that injury last year was a big part of what he, it affected a big part of what he did. Like you said, getting to the hoop, cutting hard, making moves without the basketball, right? He moves really well without the basketball. He's not ever going to be your elite scorer. We know that. He's not a shooter. He doesn't spot up from outside. That's not his game. He likes to get in, and he'll make tough shots. He'll fight through contact and make plays. But that's good enough for that 10 a game, as well as, like you said, throw in those 4 or 5 assists. Be that guy, because with this roster coming in next year, you've got guys that can shoot it. We know. It was just like last season. But this year, you add Bryce Thompson. Avery Anderson's going to get his shots. Rondell Walker is going to get his looks based off what he showed us last year, and then the touches down low. The biggest thing for me for Ice is going to have to be the leadership value. Because he was the leader last year. We heard that multiple times. Even Cade Cunningham said, Ice is the guy. But a lot of us sat back and thought, okay, they can say that, that's fine. But when you have a player like Cade Cunningham, it's got to be a little tough, I would think. Even if you've been there for a couple of years like Ice has been, he's been a veteran with this squad, that talent rarely comes in. When it does, it can muddle things up a little bit in that way of, if you're as good as Cade, you want to be like, hey, look, Ice, he runs things, so I'm going to let him run things. We're going to do things his way, but I am Cade Cunningham. I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in there, and guess what? Who's people gonna probably listen to? I'm gonna be heard on this team.
It reminds me early Miami Heat with the big three. It's like it's D Wade's team, but we really know we're gonna kick it with LeBron. Let's keep it real, and that definitely probably got to Ice because even though everybody was saying yes, he's the leader, we know that everybody was going to be attracted to, and all the words are going to be going towards Cade Cunningham. So now he's got to be able to bounce back and realize that truly he is the leader. He is that guy that even no matter what some of the voices are saying, which that a lot of them are going towards Avery Anderson with how big of a breakout he had. They're going towards Caleb Boone because we know how big of a hole the big man position is. They are going to these other guys because those are the big holes, but they need that consistent leader guy in Isaac Likely that honestly at some points he wasn't as consistent as he was last season. So he needs to be able to bring that back and get to a certain level to where everybody can feel a little bit more confident in him.
Yeah, if he comes out healthy again this year and is able to stay healthy, I think that he's going to have a role that's extremely important, as we talked about with the fit. And as far as leadership, he knows he's the guy now. I feel like that it's not, I don't want to go as far as saying like, oh man, it's a huge weight lifted off his shoulders, but he does have to feel a little more free and open to kind of be the Isaac Likely that he wants to be, because there isn't a superb elite talent that commands so much attention from everybody, whether it be the media, the spotlight that's thrown on him in every single game, the players, and you like having that because of the production he's probably going to bring, but you also like that smoothness that Isaac Likely brings to a team's camaraderie, getting everybody together. And Coach Mike Boynton is going to need that this year with these guys, because I think Avery Anderson's clearly your number one guy when it comes to running the floor and things like that and setting up the offense, and Ice is going to have his role with that too. But if you fit that in the right way and you find a way to manage these personalities, I think things can go well for this team, even with no Cade Cunningham this upcoming season. A lot of guard play, man. Plain and simple. We're going to see a lot of guys running up the floor, getting shots up, outrunning teams at times too. That's going to be a big part of what they do.
Oh, that's so going to be a big part. And I got into it with Zach yesterday, and the main thing for Oklahoma State is there's going to be the 2 problems that you ran into last season. You got to see if you can at least correct one of them, the inconsistency and the big man play. And Zach to me had a little spot on. I think we talked about it off air. Is out of those 2 problems, I could deal with big men problem if the inconsistencies go away. And remember, Ice was a big component to inconsistencies to where at some points he just couldn't get a bucket on his own right. So if the inconsistencies sure themselves up, then hopefully things for Oklahoma State go a little bit better this upcoming season, where it's going to be about 99% of the time small ball.
Yeah, no, and I think a big part of that, because I was thinking about that yesterday when we talked about, towards the end of the week, we had talked about Kofi Coburn as well, and it made me think, we mentioned a lot when it comes to Caleb Boone, okay, but also Matthew Alexander-Moncrief. What's the leap going to be for him? Because I think he'll be an integral part. He's not ever going to be your true big man. We know that. He's too athletic for that. But he can be a guy that I believe can drive this team. If we see him take the leap this upcoming season, you're not feeling as weak in that spot as you might originally have thought you were, but it's all going to be on based upon what he can do from a game in, game out basis. Last year we saw some really good things, we saw some not so great things. If the toughness increases because of his ability to bully his way in and make plays, I think he's going to be a huge part of what this team does. Also a guy that kind of goes a little behind the scenes, but his athleticism is through the roof. We know he can get to the hoop from pretty much anywhere with his stride and his ability, so I think he's also going to be a huge part.
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of those, I almost want to say X-Factor type of guys that will be able to shift the game sometimes for Oklahoma State. Matthew Alexander-Moncrief has a lot of potential. It's just, will he be able to realize it? And will he be able to step up to the big moments like Caleb was towards the back half of the year? The back half of the year, Caleb was able to step up to those front half. That's the moments we don't want to talk about. But can Matthew Alexander-Moncrief see those same moments and rise up to those opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. My next one I'm going to go to, because we've got the Home Run Derby coming up. We've got the All-Star Game coming up. Shohei Ohtani going to be involved in the Home Run Derby, as we talked about. And it seems like every day you're reading that he hit another home run. He hit 2 in a game, whatever it is. He's past 30 before the break, which is unbelievable. Buy or sell that this year in the home run derby, he sets the record for most home runs hit in a derby, which was set by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. back in 2019, which, by the way, feels like 10 years ago.
Right.
But back in 2019, when he hit 91 bombs throughout that entire home run derby, can Shohei break that number?
91
bombs. And the next closest to that was Giancarlo Stanton with 61 back in 2016. So there's a little bit of a gap there, if you will, a 30 home run gap.
I don't think he's going to be able to beat 91, but I will say that he could come in second. I think second is reasonable because Vlad Guerrero Jr. just going ham with 91. That's just insane before the COVID times, before things got very crazy. But yeah, I just think the number that Vlad Jr. set is just one of those that it's kind of going to go up there like how you see in other various league histories of like that's a number that's not going to be beat for a long time, unless probably by Vlad Jr. himself. But I think that you're going to see Shohei throw a good performance, or he's going to hit a good performance, probably going to win the home run derby. He's going to be my favorite, but I don't think he's going to be able to beat 91.
And then the way that Vlad hit those 91, you remember he had the 29 home runs in that first round, which was unbelievable itself.
Right.
But then he comes out and he has those couple of swing-offs that they did in that second round where he hit 40 alone in round number 2, which was just unbelievable, that back and forth that he had there. I want to say that was with Pete Alonso. I may be wrong, but that back and forth was incredible. I remember him. It was just unbelievable. And so now this year with Shohei, what's so great about him is because every hitter in the home run derby likes that sweet spot where the ball is. But I feel like with Shohei, you can pretty much throw it anywhere in or near the zone, and his reach and power, he's going to send it out. We're going to see some opposite field homers in the derby. He's going to go dead center a bunch of different times because of that ability. But I'm also going to sell. 91 is unbelievable. He would have to get into a couple of swing-offs as well and a couple of extra time situations for him to even get close to that. I'm with you, though, on the Giancarlo Stanton number. I think he can break 61 and get into that second place all-time. It's going to be fun. I think that really what he's done and then getting him to accept this invite, because you see a lot of players, especially now, turn it down. It's like, nah, I don't want to do it. I don't want to hurt my swing. I don't want to get hurt. You hate to see anybody potentially, especially like Shohei with the year he's having, finds a way to injure himself during a home run derby out of all things. So you understand that. But him accepting it and going to be a part of it draws so much attention to a game that needs it, man. As we talked about, and needs something positive. You feel like you're back and forth on the sticky stuff, on moving the All-Star game. You can get all these negatives. But if we can, if all these fans come together and watch Shohei Ohtani, get everybody who's been the most positive story by far in Major League Baseball this year for what he's done as a two-way player. You sit down and watch him at the home run derby. That's like a connector right there, man. It gets everybody involved rooting for one guy, and I think Major League Baseball needs that more than ever right now.
Yeah, you need that one big name that everybody could surround the home run derby with, because outside of that, it's just, to me, a bunch of guys that are still pretty good players, but not really known of like being those big home run punchers. Because I know Matt Olson's in there, Trevor Story's in there, but it's not those guys that are those big names when it comes to home runs. It's not those guys that automatically you click and you draw the eyes to the screen. But Shohei Ohtani is that guy.
Well, another part of it too, with it being in Colorado, the ball flies in Colorado, as we know. And Trevor Story's going to get that advantage playing with the Rockies. But Shohei, when he hits the ball, when he gets it up in that Colorado air, man, come on. He's going to hit one 500-plus feet if he gets a hold of one, man.
It's going to be a really fun competition, man. I think that someone's going to try to go up there and really give Shohei a run for his money, but I'm still going to have Shohei as my favorite.
Yeah, I'm with you, too. I think he'll be the overall overwhelming favorite for the home run derby, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for that to get going. That's Buy or Sell here on the Robert Allen and Friends Show as we continue on. When we come back, we'll give you one thing that we learned today from our time here, and then we'll say goodbye. This is the Robert Allen and Friends Show here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Feel like I'm gonna puke, cause my taxes are due. Do my password begin with a 1 or a 2? Been a hell of a ride, but I'm thinking it's time to grow.
Metronome.
Man, I'm up to something. Oodie-la-dee-do, thank you all for coming. I hope you like the show, cause it's on a budget. So oodie-la-dee-do, yeah. Come on, here we go, yeah. Come on.
Here we go.
So put your best face on, everybody pretend you know this song. Everybody come here.
Welcome back into the Robert Allen and Friends Show. Triple Play Sports Radio Network. On this Wednesday, Patrick Wheeler here with you, Levi Peckinpah's along with me as well, and we're live at Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. You can call them at 405-780-6637. Competitive advantages include advantage values, upfront pricing, integrity, quality HVAC techs, Advantage innovation, our knowledgeable team here, plus plumbing service as well. And when Advantage does recommend repairs, they don't charge you that $65 diagnostic fee. You don't have to worry about that. Their goal is to come in and fix whatever you need ASAP and get you back up and running. If you're streaming in the radio station in the Tulsa area as well, you can call Advantage H&M Heating and Cooling in Sapulpa, 918-215-8729 for that Tulsa area heating and cooling services, 918-215-8729. And, of course, go online to youneedadvantage.com. We're going to tell you a little bit of something that we learned here today throughout the day. And then the thing that I learned, Levi, and I don't think this will be a huge surprise to a lot of people, but reports out of the Jacksonville Jaguars talking about Trevor Lawrence, who has as one person put it, once-in-a-generation arm based off of what they've seen. And that comes from a veteran teammate as well. And I think that what's interesting about the whole Jaguars situation, clearly Tim Tebow took the headlines, but it's been a quiet offseason so far as Trevor Lawrence. That's been part of the whole advantage to having a guy like Tim Tebow around is, look, we're going to keep the media and the buzz away from our rookie QB. He's going to focus on being really, really good and working hard in the offseason to mean that guy. And most that we'll talk about him is refuse to name him starter, right? Like, that's been the big story. Like, we don't know. The job is still up for grabs. Like Urban Meyer, the quarterback coach, all these guys saying that. It's like, come on.
There's potential for Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, you never know. Somebody like Gardner Minshew could be. No, come on. But everyone talking about it, look, he's got a cannon of an arm. It looks really, really good. He clearly is the favorite to win that Rookie of the Year, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. But this is a situation where a lot of people also talking about he's picked up that playbook real quick. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's going to be more interest in this team than there has in a very, very long time overall because of the different dynamics. Certainly Tim Tebow was just icing on the cake, but you already had Urban Meyer coming in and seeing if he can make that transition to the league. Can Trevor Lawrence, because I know you and I have kind of felt the same way, been a little bullish on what exactly he's going to bring to the table. Will his talents translate? Because obviously he was unbelievable in college, but how many times have we seen that with QBs and they can't get it done at the next level? You throw a guy into the mix like Trevor Lawrence with a team that has had their struggles, has dealt with offensive line issues, has dealt with lack of production, especially defensively. Will he be able to overcome these challenges? But there is good news coming out of the camp that they've said, look, this is a once-in-a-generation arm. He's got a cannon, and I still think it goes back to making me think, look, I know the whole Tim Tebow thing blew up in a lot of different ways, but Urban Meyer has to be sitting back and probably thanking him, saying, look, Tim, appreciate, man, what you've done in terms of taking the media away from our guy while you've been over here, being talked about left and right, and are you going to play, and are you not going to play, and, selling jerseys, all this stuff. Our guy, Trevor Lawrence, he's been enjoying the silence. He's been sitting back, honing his craft, working with our offense, working with the playbook, and it's helped immensely. I can't wait to see what he does with this team because I think there's either potential to be back to average probably for the Jags, or you're going to have another down season. It's going to take a little while until you get another big-time playmaker involved. You added ETN as well in the backfield. You've got James Robinson, who's really, really good. We saw that last year. How will this team evolve? I think they're going to be one of the more exciting teams. They went from one of the worst last year no one cared about to this year they've been the focus of the offseason.
Oh, yeah. And also, coming out of that Jags camp, from what I've heard, James Robinson's still going to be getting a lot of the carries.
Man, I hope so.
Whew,
he deserves it, man.
Because for a second, I thought they were going to do him really dirty with them bringing in ETN, but from what it seems like, James Robinson's still going to get a lot of those carries. But
undrafted free agent to what he did last year with the touches he was given, come on. He ain't going to lose that spot.
Oh, yeah, he is not going to lose that spot. Also, for what I learned today, for one thing, I did not know that there's going to be a biopic over Kurt Warner. And American Underdog's the name of it. It will be coming out in December. And the man that will be playing Kurt Warner will be Zachary Levi. And I showed you a picture of the two side by side. It is going to be a great biopic because it was almost like a split image. And from the way it looks, I looked a little bit at the trailer while we were in our break. I think it's going to be an interesting movie.
I really do too. I'm looking at more of it right now, and you're right. Zachary Levi is like that's about as spot on as close to a cameo as you can get.
Yeah.
For a guy to like Kurt Warner, you're going to take a good look at his time with the Rams and things like that, actual footage and stuff.
Yeah.
He was the executive producer at The Greatest Show on Turf. Man, I feel like that is certainly worth a biopic there, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on that. Everyone loves a solid football movie, right? That's always been the case.
Oh, yeah. Everybody loves a solid football movie. Now, I just wonder who's going to be playing Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. I just need to know this now.
You know they got to make their appearances, right?
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
You got to have cameos from the majority of the big pieces from those Rams during the day. If you don't, you're doing a disservice to football fans everywhere. So Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce definitely are going to be making some type of appearance. Somewhere.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Kurt Warner's always been pretty captivating, too, with what he can do in terms of, speaking and with the appearances he made with Fox and all that stuff, becoming an analyst. So that'll be real cool. Always been a good guy. Excited to see when that does come out. Yeah, called American Underdog. Lionsgate Films dropping that. Coming to theaters, he says, in December. So that'll be good stuff. There you go. That's what we learned. That's going to do it for us here on the Robert Allen and Friends show today. Again, live today from Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Make sure you give them a call, 405-780-6637. Or you can go online to youneedadvantage.com. This is the time. Do not wait around this summer to get your AC taken care of before it's too late. Again, speaking from experience, something you do not want to deal with. That's for sure. A big thank you to all our guests today. I got to thank TJ Eckert. He was great as always. Dan Buffa joining me too. Thanks to Jordan there back in the studio as well. And Levi for hopping on with me. You can catch him later today on the afternoon Sports Drive with Zach at 3 o'clock. And I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. to keep it going with the Robert Allen and Friends show. And until then, everyone have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday and keep it locked here to the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.